against the Broncos on Sunday afternoon. So we'll check in with Danan. We'll also get you set for fantasy football week 8 already, including Thursday night football. Bucks, Bills, kind of an interesting game suddenly with the way the Bills are playing, even though they're massive favorites tonight. But Paul Charchian of GuillotineLeagues.com will join us. And based off his Twitter feed, I'll give him a hard time. No new conspiracy theories to bring up with Paul Charchian today at 1 o'clock.
So not 3 weeks in a row with Charchian.
I don't think so.
Let's just see which other one he believes in, like the Bigfoot's real.
That's true. We
or
can
the Avril Lavigne one I've mentioned on the show. Let's just find out what other conspiracy theory might be up Charch's alley. Let's not eliminate conspiracy talk with Charch at 1 o'clock, although I'm sure a lot of people have questions about their fantasy football teams right now. Are you guys both still alive in the Cody and Gold Guillotine League?
We are.
I quit on that years ago. So terrible.
Our friend Nick Price, the Price is Right, who won
Defending
it
champ.
last year, got chopped this past week.
Tough.
And I did not put any bids in for anybody. Some of that was
you didn't.
Some of that was intentional.
Maybe you won't be able to take so I won't have anybody taking my bids then.
I now have the third most money in the league left now from a bidding perspective. So yeah, Cody and Gold Guillotine League still going strong. And
Do you a lot of good if you
fantasy
get knocked
football.
out this week?
Yeah, well, no, I've spent 700 of it, and we're still,
Oh, you spent
there's a lot of people. A lot of people have spent more. Drew's still has 500 left, I think, and then Joe has not spent a dime yet. Risky,
and he's in
risky,
first place.
risky.
Isn't that risky?
But there's no first. Again, there's no first place in guillotine. You just survive
you don't
each
have to
week.
spend the money if you're the leading scoring team.
Yeah, but Nick Price was the third highest and just got shot.
Yeah, that's fair.
So you know how that goes.
I do.
What about the Broncos on Sunday? Because they are playing the Chiefs so quickly, right? The schedule working out, we're in a 3-week span. You're going to knock out both your games with the Denver Broncos. We know the Chiefs won 19-8 the last time these two teams faced off. 19-8, but it was just like a dominating 19-8 win. Weird game, the way things went. Everybody felt like the Chiefs should have been up 30-10 or something like that, but that was not the case. And now that it's the second time around, it's in Denver. Does anything change for you this go around? Because the only thing that comes to my mind is the defense of the Broncos actually looked a little bit better last week in their win against the Packers, but it was Jordan Love in the Green Bay Packers.
So you could make an argument that they're playing slightly better football. So maybe in some way, Gold, that should be changing your opinion on this team a little, right? So kind of, but I got to be honest, it is still very hard to take Denver seriously. What am I supposed to do? Care more because they eked out some 19-17 win against the Jordan Love-led Packers? That's not an impressive win. It's a win. It counts. That's more than they were doing in the early portions of the season than when they were dropping to even worse teams than that. But Russell Wilson is still an incredibly limited player. Their best offensive player, Courtland Sutton, can be shut down by the Chiefs' very good and talented cornerback group, just like he was in the first game. And so, no, I have a hard time imagining. The other part about that game that still stands out is that was like the biggest blowout for a 19-point, 11-point victory ever. That game was not close. It was never close. The two teams were clearly different in talent perspective. I guess this one's on the road. You want to make some argument there for just, hey, you have to physically go to Denver versus get to play in your home building? But no, honestly, I think the line's a little low. For a team that beat them by 11, and it wasn't all that hard, I only have to lay 7 points in order to get there. Denver's still a bad team. They're still one of the worst 5 to 7 teams in all the NFL. I view them like I should. You should beat this team fairly easily because they're a bad football team.
Mahomes is 13-0 against the Broncos. We know that. And we know he's never lost a road divisional game. And
this would be a single record for undefeated streak to start a career against any team. Imagine just like stepping in the league and just never losing to a squad.
Yeah, he's 12-0. He's trying to get to 13-0. Yeah. No quarterback, as you were about to say, no quarterback in NFL history has ever started 13-0 against any opponent. I don't care, let alone a divisional opponent, which are supposed to be tougher games and all that. And I'm not saying that divisional opponent games can't be more, I hate using the word trap, right? Yeah, that's typically the trap game stuff that people want to bring up. But he has owned the Denver Broncos. He plays at a different level even on the road in divisional games at times. And the weather part, we joked about it yesterday, like Patrick Mahomes, he's a snow game guy, right? And we'll see if it actually ends up being a snow game. It sounds like it's just going to be cold and windy for the Chiefs game, maybe not actually snowing or accumulating on the ground or anything like that. So the only change for me in the last 2 weeks from the last time they played the Broncos is, A, the Broncos defense played a little bit better, but guess what also has changed? The Chiefs offense, it looks like they've gotten Rashee Rice more involved since the last time they played. The last time they played, we were saying, hey, all right, we continue to see more, continue to see some struggles with the wide receiver room. Time to get Rashee Rice more playing time. This go around when the Broncos play the Chiefs, Rashee Rice should be more involved in the game plan. So that to me balances out some of this as well.
It does, but then I guess the one thing I haven't mentioned yet is this would be considered a look-ahead game. I would understand if the Kansas City Chiefs were more focused on going to Germany to take on what is a team that has the second best record in the AFC, a team that possesses a player that used to play for their team, that has talked a fair amount of trash during that time, and an offense that would provide a much stiffer test for their defense than what they have currently been going up against. I could see how you would want to look ahead to Miami. And I understand Andy always tries to avoid that, and he's a 1 week at a time guy. That doesn't mean human nature doesn't step into play here, and sometimes these guys do still look ahead. But I could see a way in which you would look ahead, although the Tyreek mystery injury that cropped up yesterday,
hip injury or something,
all of a sudden adds a whole nother layer of confusion of an injury that I have to watch for the next 10 days now.
Yeah, that's a next week's storyline, but certainly will be one. And like the build-up with that game, it would be actually really disappointing if Tyreek Hill somehow couldn't play in that game, considering the build-up of it not only not being in Kansas City, as the lights just flickered in here in the studio, but
for
also
some reason you're watching the stream, you would have seen that.
But also, it would be just disappointing to now not have him, and it's in Germany. But for this weekend, Russell Wilson's still the quarterback of the Denver Broncos, okay? And that Denver Broncos offense and that team as a whole in 2 weeks then suddenly become a much more difficult opponent, just like that. You still have cheesy Russell Wilson with his airplane and let's ride and all that stuff still going on out there in Denver, man.
Man, Denver has got to, like, if you go back through, I remember Chiefs fans, one of the most hated players in Chiefs fans history, especially in the 90s, was John Elway. Elway had like a 60% winning percentage against the Chiefs. Those games were more back and forth than you remember them in your head because of the several times that John Elway stuck the dagger in your back. Could you imagine being the fan of another team and someone beat you 13 consecutive times?
But you just said it. I mean, this is...
Oh, my God, it's lopsided.
You just said it. We both done a couple radio hits in Denver the last couple times they've played, and they'll ask about this dominance, and the comparison you absolutely, Chiefs fans can relate to is like, hey, John Elway dominated the Chiefs back in the 90s. Everybody hated John Elway. Well, Patrick Mahomes is dominating the Denver Broncos, and right now in even more impressive fashion. It's much smaller sample size. We'll see down the road what the final record is. Spoiler alert.
And Elway did it in some playoff games when it really hurt.
And that's not Mahomes' fault. The Broncos just aren't good enough to even make the playoffs, so that's their issue on that end. But Mr. Unlimited is still the quarterback for the Broncos. Keep that in mind. He did not even throw for 100 yards, guys. Didn't even make 100. It was like 97 yards, I think it was, passing a couple weeks ago. And as the text line points out, McCall Hardman was on the Jets the last time they played, and that was only 2 weeks ago.
It makes me really laugh at the people who were trying to make the argument, be like, hey, Russell Wilson's not the problem, guys. His stats are close to Patrick Mahomes. No, but people were like putting side-by-side stat comparisons between him and Mahomes and be like, just a better team. I'm like, I don't care if this quarterback rating is good or better. Yes, he is a better quarterback than he was a year ago. They still stink. He still makes mistakes. He is still Mr. Limited, right? He is not the same player that he used to be, and he's probably never, and I would be surprised, if he was ever that player again. Now, I have a hard time looking at this game and be like, I better think something different about it, other than maybe you'd be looking ahead to Miami, because that is a massive game. You'll get 10 days to think about, 14 days to think about Philly. You got all the time in the world. You don't have to look ahead to that game. You don't have to look ahead to that game because you're playing Miami. It's not the repeat of the Super. None of that matters. The Miami game, though, I could see. You got overseas travel coming. You've got one of the toughest competitors in the AFC as it currently stands. A chance, because if you beat Miami, you don't get a stranglehold, but you got a firm grasp on the top seed in the AFC. You are like in control of that thing now handedly, because the two teams behind you be Miami and Jacksonville as it sits right now, and you've already beaten both. You would have already beaten both, right? If you go to Germany and beat
Just
Miami.
Remember, just a short 2 weeks ago, we were discussing after the game, like, okay, hey, we've seen a lot of these games before, right? It was 19-8, and it seemed like sluggish for a little while, despite winning by double digits. That was the thought, like, all right, they usually are sometimes playing down to competition a little bit. the fact that they're playing so soon and how fresh that game is in their mind, in a weird way, as much as, yes, it's challenging because your opponent knows what you did well and so quickly you're going to have to make adjustments. That's true, but also the things you as a team didn't do well, that's still so fresh. There's only so much to me when you're limited with your personnel, like the Broncos are in some areas, that you can change in a 2-week span. You know what I mean? We can talk about adjustments all we want, but you also have to have the horses, no pun intended, to actually be able to do that with the Broncos, and they don't.
There is one way in which I think Denver could still stay in the game, which has been a consistent problem for a couple of years for Kansas City and is a problem again this year, or at least has been to this point, turnovers. That's the way Denver stays in this game. The Chiefs are 7th in the NFL in giveaways this year. Now, unlike last year, they are taking it away.
There you go.
Better than they were last year, right? So their differential is 0. They've given it away as many times as they've taken it away. But there are only a handful of teams who have given the ball away more than the Chiefs. They are the Patriots, Colts, Falcons, Vikings, Browns, and Raiders. What do we think largely of that group? Mediocre to bad, right? That's pretty much how you would describe the teams ahead of them in the giveaway department. They are either kind of boringly decent, maybe, right? That's Atlanta. Atlanta's the figurehead of that. Or they are straight up bad. We made fun of Minnesota before they took on the Chiefs about their inability to hold on to the football. They've only given it away 2 more times than Kansas City. That's the way Denver stays in the game. And honestly, I don't understand. It is very confusing to me why this is a common theme for Andy Reid offenses. Runs one of the toughest camps, crisp offense. I'm like, why the hell do they give the ball away so much? Mahomes doesn't throw 92 picks a year.
It's an aggressive offense, though, right? I mean, it's a very aggressive offense.
And some of his are arm punts. I mean, I can give a little bit of credit to a few of those ending down the field. But it surprises me that every year we seemingly have this conversation where this team still has some issues with giving the ball away. It's what keeps some of these games close. Honestly, they'd be 7-0. Obviously, if they didn't have the turnovers against Detroit, hell, if just Kelsey and Jones play, they probably, in that case. But it's like, I feel like you would definitively be like, that is the best team in football, and it's not even close. If they eliminated one thing, turnovers. That's it.
Yeah, but you go through some of the great teams that have won Super Bowls, whether it's in Kansas City or just in the league. It's pretty rare that you just have a team that is just dominant and perfect in every category. And yet, right now, you're pointing out turnovers, which is fair. But we also know they're the first team since 1999, the 99 Rams, that is top 5 in all 3 phases of the game. So there is no such thing as a perfect NFL team. That is one area that I'm sure if you were to ask Andy Reid about, hey, where could you improve heading into the bye week in a couple weeks, protecting the football. But the benefit they have right now, they've had some wiggle room for that because of how dominant their defense is. And this offense is suddenly the 6th best offense in football, and they continue to improve week in and week out. Which we'll talk more about, I know, in about 15 minutes or so.
Having a net 0 is different than the previous years. I'll definitely give you that, right, Gold? I mean, this year they've taken the ball away plenty of times, so it doesn't feel as this is going to be the thing that caused them. Because remember, at some point last year, about halfway through the year, they were like -7 or 8 or 9 in the turnover differential. They were giving the ball away a clean full-time more than their opponents. And then they stopped giving it away in the second half of the season, got that thing back to around league average, and everything was okay. Similar story in 2021. So either maybe this is good news. Maybe this just means the Chiefs give the ball away sometimes in the early going, give them a little bit of time, they'll stop giving it away, but now they actually have a defense capable of taking it away for the first time in a few years. They got 5 interceptions and 6 fumble recoveries. 5 interceptions, nowhere close to league, by the way. 49ers have like 11 or 12, which is just kind of a stupid number, only 7 games into the season anyway. But it is something I think you have to monitor. The team's 6-1. I'm not going to tell you anything should send you out to just like panic mode. Freak out! This is what we said about the wide receiver. Oh no, it's the sky is falling. No, but it's officially 7 games into the season. If you've given the ball away, the 7th most in the NFL, we have to watch that now because you keep giving the ball away. I would like one of those classic turnover-free Mahomes games. I'd like to see one of those just like, they beat Denver and he doesn't give the ball away in this one.
I'm with you, but also the trade-off, right, of the aggressiveness. I mean, he's coming off
I don't care if they were picking the last game.
That's what I'm saying. If I tell you he's throwing for 4 touchdowns on Sunday against the Broncos, then I don't think you care about the turnover. I get what you're saying. I think here's what it comes down to. The Chiefs, because of how talented they are, frankly, and how good they are as a football team, their margin of error, even in the turnover battle, is just a little bit different. Like the most cliche football analysis that you could ever give, right, Cody, is just win the turnover battle, right? You win the turnover battle, you're going to win a lot of games, right? That's something that everybody has said since the dawn of time when it comes to football.
It's like the easiest way to lose or keep bad teams in it.
And it's very true. And I'm not telling you it doesn't matter because that'd be foolish. However, there are some teams, right, where it is way more impactful than others, way more detrimental. And for the Chiefs, they're able to overcome it more. Look at week 2 against Jacksonville. They were the most penalized team in that game. They had more turnovers in that game, and they still on the road found a way to beat Jacksonville. I would say 90% of teams in the league, there's no chance they could find a way to do that.
No, they're one of the few that can overcome it. But I also don't want them testing that theory a lot.
Sure. Yeah, I would prefer them not to turn the ball over. I'm just saying that if this was just go with average football teams in the league, right? If this was just a very average 4 or 5 win team, and they were also 7th most in turnovers, well, you would say, well, yeah, it's because they can't overcome. Or you could say,
hey, here's how we can fix this problem, right?
Yeah, they can't overcome that. The Chiefs hopefully fix the problem there, yes, but also it's just not as detrimental to them as a football team with who they are and what they've proven, by the way, historically and even this year, where they've had some games where they've lost that turnover battle and they found ways to win.
I understand. I mean, that's a nice part of this stat that has continued to come up. I don't know. I mean, maybe 2 teams in the NFL that if you told me that they were -3 in the turnover differential, did they, like, just the end question, did they have a chance to win that game? Maybe 2 that I said that they had a chance to win that game. Those are unwinnable games for the most part. And they could have beaten Detroit, and they won another game in which they were definitely down and out on the turnover differential. That is the funny thing about that defensive stat is we probably will stop referencing it eventually because it's a totality stat, total points per game allowed eventually. But I just can't help but laugh right now because of the only team who's allowed 21 or less points. And we know that a full-ass 7 of those 21 was a pick 6 off of Kadarius Toney's fingertips. He dropped that ball, and then he was never involved in the offense again, man. We never heard from Kadarius Toney again. I asked you this question a couple weeks ago, just real quick. I know we're going to talk fully about the wide receivers. You know what? I'll save it for that. I am curious. I have a question about the wide receivers.
Okay, we'll get to that in about 10 minutes or so. We're just getting started here on a Thursday. You mentioned the Germany game a couple times already, and we know the Chiefs will be in Germany, Frankfurt to be specific, next Sunday when they take on the Dolphins. And it's an 8:30 kickoff. It also is daylight savings times ending, right? I believe we'll fall back at that point in time.
Wait, for real?
I think, is that the same day or am I off a week? Either way.
I think it's the same day, yes.
I think it's the same day, yeah. And so at that point, you're going to get up early, get out of bed, you're going to turn on your TV. You would think that you'd wake up and the TV you could turn on, because you have power in your house. Not the case in Odessa, Missouri. Did Fox 4 put this story out that in Odessa, Missouri, they've been notified by the city and Evergy that their area is going to experience a planned power outage from midnight to noon on November 5th. That would cross over into the Germany game. Got to do something. We got to help our friends out in Odessa, Missouri here, okay? How on earth did nobody think that a planned power outage on NFL Sunday, specifically when the Chiefs are going to be playing, was a good idea? Somebody's not paying attention.
Maybe originally when that person put the thing in there, they thought noon, sweet. Squared away.
But even then,
problem solved.
Even then, that's still problematic. Who's doing planned power outages for that long period of time on an NFL Sunday?
Well, I mean, if they need power outages, when do you want them to do it? It's not like there's a convenient time to have no power.
Well, what are they doing? It says that they're difficult to reschedule according to Evergy. Workers are scheduled to rebuild a transmission line using multiple crews, permits, coordination with the railroad company to get the job done before colder weather. It's a big project out there. But you're not going to be able to watch a Chiefs game if you live in Odessa, Missouri.
Okay, so we've got it. This is it. We weren't originally planning on like having a watch party for the game, but we got to find a place for listeners of Cody and Gold, specifically the people who might be living in Odessa, to have a place to go watch the game. Maybe our friends at Jefferson's, maybe our friends at Kelly's, where we go to a lot. We got to find a spot, Gold, where we can have the listeners come meet us. Because I'll be honest, that is some pretty terrible planning by the city of Odessa. Planning a power outage in the middle of the Chiefs game in Germany against Miami, one of the better teams in the AFC. How far out in advance do they plan this? If they plan this out a year in advance, we're having a very different conversation. Something tells me this is more like they planned it out like a month ago.
Yeah, it's about an hour from here, if you're wondering. It's like a little less than an hour away from here is where Odessa, Missouri is. But this is it sounds like there's no change to this. Like this is basically what's going to happen.
This is going to happen.
If you live in Odessa, Missouri, you're going to have to find a different place to watch the Chiefs game. I mean, the only way this would be worse if it was Super Bowl Sunday, and somehow the Super Bowl was international as well, and the game was
Could you
earlier.
imagine?
But like, not having any power. If this was happening in let's just be honest, a bigger city than Odessa, there's no way this would have ever happened. No chance.
I like the guy who's just like, yeah, I got a generator coming. Like, I'm going to solve this problem right now. You got to invite everyone over. I remember as a kid in that giant ice storm that took place in like the early 2000s, I went over to a friend's house because they had a generator and they gave us the choice. You could either run the heat or like run the TV for like video games and movies. We're like, blankets, it's fine. Let's put on this stuff. Like if you had the choice right now, go like, hey, I can either run the heat. It's going to be cold, right? On November 5th. Let's say, Gold, you can either run the heat to your apartment or you can get in a bunch of blankets and you can put the game on. You're like, game?
Putting the game on.
I'll put the game on.
Yeah.
I understand you could just leave the house, but
Yeah,
if those were the only two choices.
Someone says, doesn't the game start early? Yeah,
That's the problem.
That's the issue is that the planned power outage in Odessa is going to go from midnight till noon. The game's at 8:30. When it kicks back on, the game will be over. The game's going to get over like 11:30 or so. You will miss the entire game if you live in Odessa, Missouri because of this planned power outage. Someone says they live in Odessa local bar. Some said that. Okay, so they live in Odessa. The local bar is getting a generator for the game. Someone else says they're out in Odessa now. It's underwater, so they're screwed either way. Oh, is there flooding going on? That's unfortunate as well. If that's the case.
Well, if you guys want to make the drive in, we'll find a place to.
I know Jefferson's, our friends over at Jefferson's, they're going to have both locations opened up at 8 a.m. for the Germany game. Thinking of our guy Nick Price, so they're going to be opened up. There's a lot of places around town, by the way, that are going to have brunch and breakfast.
We'll have someone take us in.
And 8 a.m. or so, 8:30.
I couldn't imagine if they did this in KC. Like if they just,
it would happen. Let's be honest. It just would not have happened. They're getting screwed because they happen to be in Odessa, Missouri.
That's too close. That's inside of that's inside of an hour of this market. They're all Chiefs fans.
Someone says they live outside the city limits of Odessa. A bunch of people are going to their house. Someone says the VFW near there has a generator plant. So at least there's some people in town that are making maybe some watch parties out of this thing.
That's good. Hang out with some of your neighbors. Someone says, Cody, you can just have a watch party on one of your 27 decks. Well, the projector screen only works if it's dark, you know? I mean, then I got to roll a TV out to the deck to watch this thing at 8:30 in the morning.
With daylight savings time, is it going to still be dark?
Oh, great question.
Yeah, no, not at 8:30.
No, it'd be bright. Yeah, no, it should be.
Because we're falling back, so I guess the sun would rise. Or okay, yeah,
another
It's
terrible
going to be brighter earlier.
Yeah.
Another terrible daylight savings.
Oh, by the way,
time
today
with
was
kids.
one of those mornings, be honest, rainy, dark, one of those where you could have sat in bed for another hour or so. I don't care who you are. This was one of those, like the dog didn't even wake me up. She was still sleeping. Like this is one of those where
you were ready to just go to bed.
Could have slept for another hour or
You did
so.
come in a little later than normal, so you must have taken the extra 10 minutes.
I left the house 5 minutes later, but also people don't know how to drive when it rains suddenly. You would think that we were driving in a monsoon.
But
we weren't.
you know what? You're not wrong. But also, by now, you have to know this as a fact.
Yeah.
The people that are like, hey, it took me like 15 minutes longer to get to work today because of this rain. I'm like, that's the case. I don't think you can just blame this on the other drivers. You just got to leave earlier in the rain.
Yeah.
It's an
But not when it's
accepted
rain.
fact at this point
do when
because, people are going to drive that way.
When it's snowing out, I'm 100% with you. Just because it's got a steady rain, I'm not leaving
But
early.
you know.
That's absurd.
Yeah. But you know. You know that fine, then just be later.
Someone says
but
daylight.
you know that it's going to slow you down.
Someone says daylight savings time is no more. Congress got rid of it. No, they didn't. They have not done that yet. Not happened yet.
That baffles me that there's actually a state or states that don't do daylight savings time.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't make any. I never knew that.
Arizona at least Arizona. I don't know because when I was living there, it didn't jump forward or whatever.
Yeah, they
That was it.
They reintroduced it, but it hasn't actually taken effect. So at some point, I'm good with us not having it. That's fine.
Also, from a kid's perspective, it sucks. They do not know that we're falling back an hour, so they would like to be up at the normal time.
It actually works out. It's the Chiefs game. So this is actually, if there was any Sunday for it to happen, this actually is perfect.
I'm always up way.
You're going to be up early for the Chiefs game anyway.
My
so
kids
anybody
get up
else
at 6:30. That is the latest they wake up under almost any circumstance, which means now 5:30. That's not a good thing. I don't need 3 hours before the Chiefs game to get fired up. I'd have been fine with an hour.
But it's better.
45 minutes.
For example, if you told me on a non-NFL Sunday when the Chiefs are playing at 8:30, right? You're getting up at 5:30. I'd rather it be on a day where I know in 2 hours or 3 hours there's an NFL game.
Do.
Right? There's some pregame coverage or whatever.
It can't hurt, I guess.
All right, coming up next, so you mentioned the wide receivers. Let's talk a little about them in particular, coming off of their best game. And A really interesting stat that impacts the Chiefs going forward based off of how effective they've been and what the Bills didn't do a couple years ago. stash of the day. You mentioned the wide receivers a little bit, this passing attack and the differences in the last 2 weeks.
Well, I would pump the brakes on if you are the all is solved, problems averted, right? There are still going to be games the rest of this season, and at least for a few more weeks, where you are frustrated by the wide receiver play. Because the truth is, what happened last week wasn't just all the wide receivers stepped up and problem solved. It's Travis Kelce went nuclear, MVS finally caught a long pass, and things still felt more normal. Sky Moore was still not involved. Kadarius Toney was still not involved. Rashee Rice was a very good player, but then MVS showed up, which meant 2 of those names did finally do it. The thing that was still fascinating to me, and I guess what I was going to ask you is, you do realize, right, that the Chiefs have still not had, even though Patrick Mahomes is second in the NFL in passing yards right now, they still haven't had a single 100-yard wide receiver this year. How? I know Kelce almost got double that in the last week. They don't have a single wide receiver who's managed to tack on 100. I think the growing pains are still there. I'm not saying get over, but like I'm telling you that you should prepare for some more games in which you're like, are any of the wide receivers ever open, and are they going to start getting open more often? I don't think all the problems are behind us because of 1 week.
I don't think it's all fixed, but you mentioned Rashee Rice. I do believe now, going into this Sunday and Sundays from here on out, I believe now you can go into a game and say, all right, it's not just, you got Travis Kelce. I do feel like Rashee Rice, to me, is someone I can count on now, if I'm the Chiefs, on a Sunday afternoon. Before, you were like, all right, outside of Kelce, you want to see more snaps from Rice to see if he can continue to build on it, but like, who else is going to step up? I feel like we know going into this game on Sunday in particular as well that Rashee Rice, he's good for at least 40-something yards. Hopefully more, by the way. There's some.
It's crazy that we're that confident.
I am.
I'll say.
Maybe not everybody. I am. When it comes to Rashee Rice.
I'm pretty confident. I don't think I'm quite as far as you just because he's a rookie wide receiver and maybe I'd like a few more weeks than 7.
Because now, to me, you got the 2, and the question is, if you want to have the explosive offense, who's the third at some point that doesn't have to be the same third guy every single week? That's before it was, hey, you had one and someone else has to evolve and come to play each and every Sunday and step up. I think Rashee Rice is that guy. I do feel good about that one too. Now it's, all right, well, who's going to be the third guy? Is it this week going to be McKinnon? Is it going to be Noah Gray? Is it going to be MVS again? I think
it's amazing how many people you list before you get to another wide receiver, which is not unfair. Not unfair by any means, but
can it be a Sky more randomly? Like I'm fine with the third guy rotates through. That's cool. As long as I know going into a Sunday, and I think we do now, Kelce and Rice. Okay. Then who's the next guy? And if that has to rotate, that's fine. So, I'm not telling you that the offense is fixed and they're going to start scoring 30-plus a game. No. I'm not going to say that at all. But I do think you have 2 receiving options that you know what you're getting each week. And now let's see if you have a third develop, or at least there's a rotation of a third option.
Let's be optimists. So I'll ask you this too, Drew. Let's be optimists for just a minute and say Rashee Rice will get 100 yards receiving in an NFL game this year. That's not being overly optimistic, but
I think that's happening.
It hasn't happened yet, but let's just pencil him in. Will there be a single other wide receiver on this team to accumulate 100 yards in a single game the rest of the year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, somebody else. I don't know who the hell it is.
You're not willing to draft a player for this.
Look,
but you're willing to say that there will be one.
One, I do think Rashee Rice at some point will. It might even be this week. There's some BetQL, which is Odyssey's betting platform, and I do some shows with them. They do models each week, and one of their projections has Rashee Rice with 93 yards this weekend. So that's pretty damn close. So maybe this weekend is that weekend. At some point, Rashee Rice will have a 100-yard game. And yet somebody else will. I don't know who it's going to be. Heck, wasn't it last year that Jerick McKinnon ended up with that because of all the passing options that he presented? So somebody else. I don't know if it's a random McKinnon game. I don't know if all it takes is, MVS had 83 last week, so it's not like he was far off. It takes 1 60-yard completion for MVS, and then you're only asking for 40. You know what I mean? Like, something weird will happen. Somebody else will get 100 yards receiving. They still have a lot of season to go. They have still some opponents that are defensively inefficient later on, even though they're going to
Chargers again, Broncos again, the Raiders again.
This Sunday might be the answer.
Yeah, maybe.
It might be Rashee Rice or somebody else that has 100 yards.
I would take MVS to be that guy, and I think there is going to be a game where he does have that. I think that and again, this might be a little bit knee-jerk, but I do think that if he can put together another solid game, it doesn't have to be 83 yards. It can be 55, and he gets maybe 3 or 4 catches. I think MVS could potentially be that third guy who Patrick goes to. I mean, again, not to say that this is similar, but shooters, all you need is one good shot to go in, and all of a sudden you've got the confidence. So maybe MVS needs that. Maybe Kadarius even needs if Kadarius can get a 5-catch, 50-yard game and a touchdown, is that enough to give him the boost and confidence that he needs to not just be a stacking games guy?
His best game so far is 5 catches for 26 yards.
Double the
this
yards.
season. By the way, I would not be banking on MVS being the guy. I looked up his game log from last year.
Okay.
In 17 games for the Chiefs last year, he managed one singular.
Yeah, so somebody else is getting
receiving.
somebody
game.
else is getting 100 yards. No, he's not
One.
going. Well, yeah, because he's not going to suddenly be a 900-yard receiver.
Tony, I guess, would be my guess. My answer is 0, by the way. If you're going to make me guess,
Really?
is there a single other wide receiver on this team that gets 100 yards receiving in a game outside of Rashee Rice? My answer is no. Rice, I do think
I
will
smell
get
a show bet.
No one else, I don't think will.
I smell a show bet here. This seems like a show bet.
Kinda.
I think this seems like we got to put something on the line here.
I don't know how to properly this might have to be a non-monetary instead a do something bet, because I wouldn't know how to properly handicap the odds of
I mean, I think I'd be getting
yards.
plus money on it.
On somebody to get 100 yards?
Not much, though. Not like 5. I mean, it would be like plus 150 or something. Because in this offense, when Mahomes is capable of throwing 400 yards, the chances of somebody outside of Kelsey or Rice at some point this year getting a 100-yard game, I don't think is that crazy.
What's crazy is he just threw for 400 yards and no wide receiver
I understand.
100
Plus,
yards.
Kelsey had like 200 yards almost, though. That's why. Kelsey had, what was it, 192 or something like that? Or 172?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Text line's right. So it sounds like a old school wheel spin. We haven't had the wheel spin in a while, but this sounds like a wheel spin.
I have the wheel. It's a little beat up, but it still exists. We just put like the same punishment on every single slice and just, spin it just for the sound effect. There's also a wheel downstairs that looks nicer than ours. I walked past it in the basement.
What do they use it for? Is it sales?
Basement storage area. It clearly once belonged to 99.7 The Point. I've never seen it out, not just sitting collecting dust on that table downstairs. I imagine we could just repurpose it. It could be our new wheel.
We can do that. There's a couple things we need to. We gotta get the whiteboard cleaned off in here and actually update it and start having our takes on there instead of our weight challenge from
we're gonna do
a year and a half ago.
We're gonna put our bad takes on there. Maybe this will be my bad take. Maybe there'll be like 7 wide receivers who finish with 100 yards the rest of the way.
It would just be funny if it happens this Sunday where all of a sudden Rashee Rice and MV and like somebody else have 100 yards. Just
Sky
right away.
Moore has
just
5 for 103 out of just nowhere, even though he's 100
Who's the least likely
yards.
out of the wide receiver group that plays on a regular basis? Sky has to be the least likely.
Yeah, that's
He's just not going to get the targets.
That's the
How's he
answer.
going to get, like, at least, and he's the least likely of all the group to take a ball 80 yards. Kadarius Toney, MVS, those guys are more likely to take a ball 80 yards than he is right now, right? McCole, those guys are all more likely. We didn't even mention McCole.
I was going to say, would McCole be a guy actually that
How many 100-yard
gets
games
100?
does McCole have in his career? He's got like 1,200 career receiving yards. McCole Hartman have a lot of 100-yard games somewhere there. I mean, he was always like the 4th option for this
His first one was last January, or to the January playoff game of 2022. So that was his first one. It came.
How many think Tyreek Hill had when he was 48?
Well, yeah.
Some ridiculous number.
McCall Hartman, I believe, has 1. I think it was the one I just referenced.
Who is that against?
I just went through his entire game log and literally once against the Denver Broncos.
That's what I'm saying. That's the one. That's the one.
it.
I said playoffs, but January 8th is what. It was McCall Hartman.
Final game of the
January
regular season against the Denver Broncos. Something tells me they were like sitting Travis Kelce in that game. Was that the year where Travis Kelce sat the final week of the season because they
week
had
18? Yeah.
Yeah, they sat him in the final week.
But yes, if you're
McCall
asking for
stepped up.
one individual name, I would Rashee Rice is the most likely wide receiver to get over 100 yards, and perhaps it is this weekend.
I think will get one this year. I don't think anyone else is going to, outside of obviously Travis Kelce. We're talking wide receivers here. You'd mentioned a stat a couple times over the show, and I was looking harder at it because I was really intrigued by can the Chiefs do this and what it means if they actually achieve it. You'd mentioned the stat yesterday that was the Chiefs currently rank in the top 5 of efficiency for offense, defense, and special teams. And Aaron Schatz, who had sent out the original tweet, was pointing out that teams who had gotten through week 7 of the year, there's a whole bunch of them, and then he narrowed it down. He's like, oh, just real quick, if you manage to maintain this for the entire season, where they are currently ranking offense, defense, and special teams, then there are only 5 teams who are able to do that. Of those 5 teams, are you ready for what they did? 85 Bears, they won the Super Bowl. 91 Redskins, well, Commanders now, whatever. They won the Super Bowl. 96 Packers, they won the Super Bowl. The 97 Denver Broncos, they won the Super Bowl. The only team out of the 5 to not win it was the 2022 Bills, who lost to the Chiefs in the Grim Reaper 13-second game that year in order to come up short. So if the Chiefs maintain this pace, and by the way, defensively seems very realistic. We know very well they finish top 5 offensively all the time in efficiency, so that makes sense. So really all I'm asking for is, can special teams keep its head above water? And then all of a sudden you're what? Telling me there's an 80% chance this team's winning the Super Bowl? I got to be honest, Gold, I kind of like those odds.
I mean, I like the odds. It's definitely a stat that you can cherry pick a little bit to get to. But meaning it's such a small sample size. There's 5 teams ever.
I think that's kind of the point of this stat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is, but
5
also
teams of 50 Super Bowl winners, though, when you start going into it, that's 10% of the league's history.
Look,
it's not a small sample size
that,
compared to the league.
Or is it just that in general, like if the Chiefs, the
really
last,
good teams win Super Bowls?
Spoiler, yeah, teams that are pretty good on offense and defense and special teams win Super Bowls.
Well, yes, but specifically ranking in that category means it's damn near a lock. The Chiefs are the only reason the Bills didn't win it.
Yeah, I mean, that stat, for example, doesn't change me. Like, hey, man, now they're going to win the Super Bowl. I already thought they're in position like every year now.
I did pick them to win the Super Bowl before the season. Nothing's changed that opinion.
I don't think that stat means like, oh my God, well now they're guaranteed to win the Super Bowl or anything like that. As you pointed out, a game in which Josh Allen was nearly perfect, they lost. So it doesn't guarantee you anything. The 13-second game, it wasn't because Josh Allen played poorly. It was because Buffalo and their head coach completely lost track of what the hell was going on in the game for 13 seconds and just decided to have the most bizarre kickoff.
That's what it took, essentially, for them to lose, which is kind of crazy.
It's so weird. It's also, in a weird way, this stat both makes me feel more confident about the Chiefs because I think there's a pretty good chance they're going to maintain where they rank in these categories for the entire year, and makes me really wonder how on earth did Buffalo not get to and or win a Super Bowl in that 3-year run in which they had a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense and a really good special teams unit for 3 consecutive years, other than the fact Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen chokes, or Sean McDermott can't get it done in the big. There's something to it, right? There's something. Now, here's the problem in that 13-second game. Josh Allen was perfect. He had a perfect 2-game stretch in the postseason and still got knocked out in the divisional round. So it wasn't a clutch moment that year, but I've seen him fail in other big games.
It's also just, they made it look easy in Kansas City. It's also extremely difficult to get to AFC title games, let alone Super Bowls, man. Like, the Chiefs have made this seem like an easy thing. We call it the Arrowhead Invitational for a reason. They're on the verge, potentially, this year of hosting their 6th straight. Patrick Mahomes has never played a road playoff game in his career. Like, that's not normal. They just make it look and seem like it's this easy thing to accomplish. So, like, the stat is a fascinating stat, no question, and it puts the Chiefs in good company for the most part there. But, like, they also have just made a lot of things seem easier anyway when they haven't had this. Like, so it's I don't know if it really changes the barometer. Like, yeah, if the defense is going to be top 3 and the offense is going to be top 5, then yes, they have a great chance to win the Super Bowl. If the 49ers have a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense, we would probably say they have a great chance to win the Super Bowl as well. What happens if 2 teams, by the way, this year are able to have similar stats?
Well, their special teams might stink. We don't know. I don't know where San Francisco's special teams ranks. Not high enough to have made the list of this stat in the early going.
Yeah.
The one, and I made this argument with Josh Allen. You probably remember me making it last year or 2 years ago, which was, I can't believe he couldn't do it with a top 5 defense, because, and the statement I made then that I stand by now is that if you ever gave Patrick Mahomes a top 5 defense, I will 100% lock in a Super Bowl win. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic or bullish, but if this defense plays at this level the entire year, it's a wrap. 2024 Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. We're done here. You can't give Patrick Mahomes an already elite level quarterback with special winning skills when it comes to the postseason and Super Bowls, an elite level defense, and not tell me that doesn't end in a Super Bowl title. It would take something catastrophic to fall apart in order for me to not think that going into a postseason run. They finished this 17-game schedule. They're going to join the 4 teams on this list that deserve to be Super Bowl champions. And by the way, those are some of those are in the middle of dynasties, and some of those are some of the better teams in NFL history. Like, you go back through, those were the 85 Bears, one of the most dominant teams in NFL history. That goes back to yesterday. We were talking about what the expectation for the win total is now for this team. Because going into the year, you thought 13 wins, I thought 14, and we both have to uptick a little bit because they've gotten through part of their schedule with a single loss. in the opening game of the regular season in which they were missing two of their three most important players.
I'm not saying the stat's not relevant. I just like there's different ways to go about looking at it as well, because that's based off of DVOA, right? Like, I mean, just a quick Google search, for example, of special team rankings. I have another one pulled up that says the Niners have the best special teams unit in football. So, like, that's the only other thing to keep in mind. The Chiefs have a great chance to win the Super Bowl anyway. They're the Super Bowl favorites for a reason. Yeah. They're playing as good as anybody in football right now. But like you said, it has to take something crazy. Well, you mean like a 13-second drive? You know what I mean? So like this idea of like it's an automatic Super Bowl win is not.
I just don't think other teams are going to do that against the Chiefs. You know, like I say, the same situation. The Bills had a top 5 defense there. Mahomes still scored in 13 seconds. Reverse it. There's not a single quarterback in the NFL I think is the only guy I thought before was Brady. He's retired. There's not a single quarterback in the NFL I think that if the Chiefs are up that amount, they're up 3 points with 13 seconds left to go and they're in the 25-yard line. Not a single quarterback in the NFL I think other than Patrick Mahomes is going down there and scoring.
Yeah, this is more when you and we have these, like for me, I don't like saying here we are like that. Oh, well, there's just no way they can't win. There's just no way, like, because weird crap happens. It's the National Football League, man.
Sure.
The Chiefs
Injuries
already
are always have to lose.
Because if the argument is like Mahomes and then give them a good defense, like there's no way they can lose. Like I don't disagree that it makes. Guess what? They're already tough to beat when they had the 15th rated defense in football. So obviously it increases their likelihood. But man, like all it takes is injuries, missed field goal, whatever it may be. It's just there's no automatic thing in the NFL, no matter how great of a chance that. Some stats.
You mean like an undefeated Patriots team getting to the Super Bowl and eventually
like everybody
losing?
thought that year. There's no way they're going to lose the Super Bowl.
They had no business losing to that team. They were definitely better than that team.
Right? But they did.
Oh, I know.
Like weird things happen. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, we'll talk to Danan Hughes, former Chiefs wide receiver. In the meantime,
Trash of the day.
Let's get to it. Where should we go for this one? We could go to a man that was in a vault for a couple hours accidentally. Let's start with that one in New York City. A man was trapped in a New York City jewelry vault overnight. Now, I was like, okay, well, how the heck does we talked about vaults in stores recently for some reason. The mannequin, right? The story of the guy that was pretending to be a mannequin. Well, a man was trapped inside a steel reinforced concrete jewelry vault in New York City overnight. Firefighters had to abandon an attempt to rescue him for safety reasons. So the vault eventually had a timer, and in the morning it unlocked like it's supposed to be. But the fire department,
how vaults work.
Yeah, the man became trapped. He was trapped. He was trying to access his own safety deposit box. Okay?
How did they not realize there was somebody in the vault?
And this building, I guess, is very famous there on Fifth Avenue. It's known as the World Diamond Tower, and it has several jewelry businesses. Now, the story still does not say how he got trapped. Like, it says he was trying to access his safety deposit box. It still doesn't say, like, how did he end up getting trapped in that. But firefighter rescue units have tools that would be able to break through the vault's 30-inch steel reinforced concrete walls. After 10 hours, the firefighters reached the steel plate and decided to hold off going any further, feeling their rescue attempts would harm the man trapped inside. And they said it's because they have torches, and they were worried like that basically that would end up harming him. The doors opened around 7 a.m. The man was freed. My question with this, Cody, if they knew that it was going to open back up at 7 a.m. anyway, not that anybody wants to be trapped for 10 hours in a vault.
Preferably not, no.
But if they knew that, then they started to rescue him. Then they're like, you know what? Too dangerous. We're just going to make him wait. Seems like a whole lot of wasted time anyway.
I think just as long as you, like, I mean...
Do they know they have oxygen in there for X amount of time, I'm assuming?
Yes, and they don't, those aren't like oxygen-free environments as in like our server room, right? When the vault closes, all the air is not just sucked out of that room. So you're probably okay. I guess the question is, why would you like plasma cut an entire thing open if you're just like, hey man, sorry, bad news. You got to hang out there for 8 hours? We'll try to slide some, like if there's, like, dude's gonna have to, I mean, the only problem is the bathroom, right?
Well, Matt, I just assumed you're just urinating in the corner of the vault. Sorry. Like, that, of course, is going to happen. Look, nobody wants to be trapped in. I'm not saying that.
Man, I'd have to hold it as long as I could before I...
Clearly, if you were stuck
resorted to peeing in the corner of a bank vault, man.
Dude, like, if you were trapped in the elevator, obviously I wouldn't say, well, the elevator door is going to open in 9 hours, so don't come and rescue me. I'm not saying that he shouldn't want to be rescued. But in this case, the vault, steel plate, like, I would assume at the store, eventually the vault will open the next morning. Because you're right, most vaults are on a timer. But yeah, if you have to go to the bathroom, dude, you're going to the bathroom. If you're in an elevator, you're not going to be miserable for 8 hours. You're going to go urinate in the corner if you have to. You got to do what you got to do.
I do sometimes, and I wouldn't call it like a legitimate fear, but anytime an elevator makes a weird sound, I do the same thing we were talking about where you pretended like, you remember we talked about like man daydreaming where you like what if I had to fight this guy and defend this person? I do consistently sometimes sit in an elevator and be like, what would I do if I got caught in here? Would I try to pry it open?
What would you do?
Would I go up in the ceiling? My immediate thought is, I would attempt to escape. I would see if I could pry the doors open, climb in a panel above. My immediate thought is, could I MacGyver myself out of this elevator rather than what if I just sat in here?
Do you daydream, Gold?
I mean, I guess, but not about getting stuck in elevators.
You weren't a part of this conversation, but this was like talking about if, like the daydreaming that is a little bit different than, like, I think the description was like, they might daydream about like, oh, what it'd be like to have a house, or like the difference between men and women.
I'm with you.
And men, we daydream like, what if this guy tried to rob this bank right now and I had to wrestle the gun away from him? Like you think about things you just have no business thinking about.
Yeah, text line's correct. You're worried about getting stuck in an elevator. You rode in a blimp, dude. You rode in
mine went great.
You rode in a blimp. Literally, like just to
I
me,
did not
just
play
seems
out that scenario.
Thing that's like in the air, like wiggling back and forth or whatever, waving back and forth.
That would cross my head at some point when you get a little turbulence and starts to waver. Like, all right, what happens if this thing actually?
I still can't get
down?
over the fact that you would not go to the bath. You think so? Like the people that were trapped in like the mines or whatever in these
that's
caves,
different.
you're just
Mine's
not
a
gonna.
little
You're
different.
just not gonna go to the bathroom.
I would hold it as long as I could, is what I said. If there was a chance I thought I could make it to the buzzer, I'm waiting until the buzzer.
And the news said it even had AC in the vault with him, so this guy was gonna be fine.
Yeah, just wait. Timer goes off eventually. Sorry you had to wait in the vault. Not sure how we didn't realize you were in the vault. As somebody who used to have to close the vault at the bank you worked at, I feel like you almost couldn't. I know it's a different size, I'm sure.
But you're in the vault. You're opening your safety deposit box or whatever, safe deposit box, and you're looking at whatever you got in there, and the door just shut on him.
The vault is borderline the last thing you do in the day. So I worked at a bank for a very brief period of time.
Did you know that Cody worked at a bank, Drew?
I think you said it, yes.
But I don't know. Well, I was just trying to quantify, but like things could change. But I don't feel like I don't know how you would have missed the guy in the vault. Is I think the point I'm making here. What happened to the employee here? Someone not doing a check?
Or did it just automatic? Like there was a malfunction? Did it just? I don't know. Is that possible for the door to just shut on its own?
Those are pretty precise.
That's what I'm saying. I'm wondering, like, was he there at close and it just started at closing time and basically it automatically closed on him? And they're like, whoops, because someone knew he was in there. Or do we know if he called?
Did he specify if the vault was the same? Because like at some banks, the safety deposit and the vault are two different rooms, both set with timers.
Okay.
Maybe he was just stuck in the safety deposit room.
All right.
I could see missing somebody there. How often do people go actually look in a safety deposit box? You have a safety deposit box?
I don't.
Do you have like a firebox in your closet?
No, my parents
I have
have a safety deposit box. I thought about getting one because most people put like either jewelry or you put your birth certificates.
I
or
don't
whatever
have anything
do you have
worth
a
enough
firebox?
money. I have a firebox,
fire safe?
but I don't have anything worth enough money to justify a safety deposit.
You don't have
box.
gold bars
No.
in there or anything,
No.
anything like
I
that.
don't have anything
No.
that's worth the price that would justify the owning it. Like, well, it'd be the saddest. Put my, what's the most expensive antique I have in my house?
No, but people put their
My
if
original
someone's-
Nintendo with like 30 games. You just put it in your safety.
But people put their, birth certificates,
I know.
passports. If someone's a gun owner, they might have their gun in a fire safe or whatever. Things like that. People at home will store. All right, that's the trash of the day. Coming up next, though, we'll talk some Chiefs football again with Danan Hughes, a former Chiefs wide receiver. We're going to get his perspective on playing a divisional opponent so quickly after the Chiefs just played the Broncos. That's coming up next right here on Cody and Gold. That'll be on the call in Denver. Of course, is former Chiefs wide receiver Danan Hughes, part of the Chiefs radio network. He'll be bundling up, I think, for the cold weather and maybe snow out in Denver. Danan, what's going on, man? Is it hard for you even not to look ahead to Germany? And how is that for players?
I'd say it's a little bit tough, but probably tougher for players. But I don't think it's as tough, guys, as looking forward to the bye week. I think when you're a player, like the first thing you look at when the schedule comes out in May, and I remember like vividly looking down and saying, oh, the schedule came out, looking at it, okay, how many Monday night games we got? If we're going back to the East Coast, how many Sunday night or Thursday night games, and then when is the bye? Like it's kind of in that order. So as far as going to Germany, I know everybody in the Chiefs organization is excited. Justifiably so, but I feel like with Andy Reid and the way this team is led, they're not looking past the Denver Broncos at all. And it's going to be cold weather in Germany too, so this will give us a preview of it in Denver. So it's all good.
Danan, do you think that there's a certain amount, like from a player pride perspective, Patrick Mahomes can beat the Denver Broncos for the 13th consecutive time, which would be an NFL record to start a career in beating a team consecutively? Do you at some point take as much pride in the streak staying alive as the team on the other side is trying desperately to end it, if that makes sense, right? The Broncos and the Broncos fans are going to be desperate to make this thing stop.
I think it may be even, and here's why. Yes, there's an extreme desperation for the Broncos and incentive for the Broncos to end this streak. Not just because it's a streak, but because they recognize like their losing season, their season is going down the tubes right now. And having said that, like they get relief for 3 of their losses automatically by beating the Chiefs. It's like, you know, I mean, it's like one of those deals where like they feel bad in Denver and all the Broncos fans feel real bad that they are where they are right now. But they beat the Chiefs. It's almost like they won 4 of their last 6 losses or whatever. So, I mean, like that's kind of where I see it for them. For us, it's just another game, another opportunity to continue dominance over the AFC West, another opportunity to stretch this lead at first place. And that's, I think the Chiefs go into the game. I don't think they think about anything else. Now, having said that, to be able to tie the second most dominance in division wins in the NFL history with 17. I believe Brady has 20?
20 is back in the Bills in the 80s. Brady is right around that range where Patrick Mahomes is now.
Yeah, I think if we would tie Brady and those guys for 17, and then previously there was 20. So, like, you're getting in rare air right now, and I think players would love to be a part of that. To be able to say when they come back, like last week, we put Dante Hall in the Ring of Honor, and they had the highlight tape that showed, and several of them were against the Denver Broncos. And you got Jamal Charles and Derek Johnson and a lot of those guys, Tom Ali, back in town. And they can say that they were part of some of this dominance as well. So I feel like some of this stuff these guys won't really be able to digest until after their careers. But to have that dominance over the team, the Donkeys, you know, I think that's special.
Playing a team in your division as well so quickly, right? And they're playing twice in a 3-week span here, and we know it was a 19-8 win the last go around. Is that more challenging to play a team so quickly, or is that actually better to play a team that you're familiar with in this short amount of span?
I think it can be better. I think especially if you won the game, you recognize, one, that the Chiefs were the better football team. They didn't play great football that day. They still won 19 by multiple scores. So there's good in that. But I think the challenge is for the Broncos because they have to think, was our game plan really good enough to replicate? Or do we have to revamp that entire game plan 2 weeks later to play against this same team? That's where, like, I don't know if I would call it a chess match, but that's where kind of the dominoes fall when you're talking about Sean Payton and the preparation for the Chiefs. Like, they have to feel pretty darn good about their game plan. The fact that they held us to 19 points and Patrick Mahomes didn't really have a great day. Like, they have to feel that way. So are they going to repeat some of that? Or are they going to say, you know what, there's some other things we could do, roll the dice, and risk losing 31-8 this time? I mean, like,
Sure.
It's kind of one of those deals that I think it makes it dynamic, a interesting dynamic for the opposing team that lost that first matchup.
Danny, we're talking about our confidence in the wide receivers, and I was pointing out that not a single wide receiver has a 100-yard game yet this year. Gold and I both think Rashee Rice will have one at some point. Are you already at the point with him that you can just count on him literally week in and week out? Gold seems like he's good to go. He's ready. He's like, I trust him the second most behind Kelsey. Are you there with Rice yet?
Absolutely. I feel like the game has slowed down, and he's speeding up in the game. I don't want to compare him to some of the rookie greats that we've seen burst upon the scene in this league over the course of history, but there's something about his gear, something about his strength that is different. I think it's kind of the production that we thought Sky Moore would have this year, but his ability to get north-south as quickly as he does after catching the ball is extremely unique. Tyreek Hill did it. There are other greats in history that did it, that made the game look slow as rookies. And I feel like he's kind of emerging in that. The biggest knock we had was him. It wasn't about him getting open. It wasn't about him creating separation. It was about him catching the ball.
Yeah.
And now he's catching the ball. So the fact that he's able to do with the ball what he's able to do is extremely impressive. And I feel like this is just the beginning. I mean, Patrick is only going to gain more and more confidence with him on the field.
Last week, Danan asked you about Frank Clark, and you weren't totally maybe sold on his fit coming back, and now it turns out there's an injury in Seattle, and so maybe a better opportunity existed for Frank Clark as he's signing with the Seahawks. But Charles Omenihu, in his spot that he was able to come back to after the suspension, I mean, that looked like the guy that was their second biggest signing of the offseason. That was impressive to come in immediately and have that impact.
Absolutely. I felt like we were going to see that. If you would have asked me before the game what I thought he would make some noise for sure. Now, did I think he would make that much noise? Wasn't 100% sure. It was different than when Chris Jones held out that first game. You kind of knew when he came back, as long as he wasn't on a pitch count, he was going to do some damage. But, like, sitting 6 games, having to watch a team flourish on defense, like, just the fact that, like, some people might think, okay, well, if the defense was playing bad and Charles comes back, he's going to elevate. But there's also a dynamic in when you watch the unit that you're working with flourish to the extent that they were, you get more, like, incentive to join the party. You just don't want to be one of the visitors. Like, you want to be a part of the whole full course in the party. And I felt like that was just him chomping at the bit, waiting for an opportunity to get on the field so he can show that he's not just going to be one of the guys that we're going to bring along. Like, he's going to be able to make some noise and join the party like everybody else. So I loved it. I thought the versatility that we saw with him lining up inside, outside, to think about this defense with Furious George, Mike Dana in the middle, Omenihu in the middle, move Chris Jones outside, bring in Felix, rotate up, Willie Gay Jr., who makes some noise in the pressure game. You also got Trent McDuffie, L'Jarius Sneed. All of these guys not only know how to make plays, and there's a difference between making tackles and making plays. These guys all are playmakers that know how to take up real estate in opponent's backfield, making those plays. That's the difference that I see, and he's a well-added, he's a huge addition for this defense.
Danan, how much will we notice the subtraction on the defense that's Nick Bolton? We don't know how long the surgery would keep him out. Obviously, Drew Tranquill ends up being a very important signing now, but how much on field will we notice that Nick Bolton isn't there?
I think it's going to show itself mostly in the run game. And I think Drew Tranquill, we've seen a couple of times him covering the tight end up the middle, up the seam, dislodging the ball or being in a great position for a difficult throw. That's what he brings to the table. That coverage ability, the sideline to sideline speed, but the run stopping ability of Nick Bolton is what is going to be missed on this defense. Now, I do feel like this unit has the capabilities of filling that gap, but to the extent of the playmaking ability, again, we might look back at the stats this week or for the next several weeks while Nick Bolton is out and see Drew Tranquill leading the team in tackles. That's great. I never pay attention to who leads in tackles and those kind of stats because you can make a tackle 6 yards down the field while Nick Bolton could have made it 2 yards. So that's the part of the game that I'm going to watch is to see how effective he can be in run stopping downhill as opposed to just making tackles.
Last one for you. Looking at the Broncos, I know they just played them so recently, but that Broncos defense last week against Green Bay did look better. Was that more about what Jordan Love and the Packers weren't able to do, or do you think the Broncos are slightly better than what they were a couple weeks ago?
I think you have to be a team. You have to feel like they can be better, or they were better. But I don't discount the fact that the Packers. I don't believe they had Aaron Jones in that game. I don't feel like they have clicked on all cylinders with their offense. Christian Watson, didn't play full or has been hampered. So you didn't get the full effect of the Packers. But with that said, we also saw last year this Denver Broncos team fight us to the end. We saw them this year in this game fight us for most of the game and making some key mistakes that cost them the game. So, the defense, I think they're going to be solid. They're going to be without Kareem Jackson. That's going to be a big blow for them. They're probably going to be able to, I guess the other benefit of playing us so quickly is that you have seen the film recently. And as a player in that locker room, when you go back on Monday and you watch the film of the previous game, that stuff is fresh in your mind. And you recognize, oh man, he played me this kind of technique. Trent, if I had to play him again this week, this is what I would do. And these are the adjustments I would make. Well, now you're just playing them 2 weeks later. So that stuff that was fresh in your mind about how you would attack this team is going to sit there, and you have that opportunity to change things. So I feel like this is going to be one of the harder fought games that we'll have this season and maybe even against the Broncos in recent years.
All right, Danan, appreciate the insight as always, man. Safe travels out to Denver, and then we'll check in next week before you head over to Frankfurt, Germany.
All right, fellas.
There you go. That's Danan Hughes. He'll be on the call Sunday afternoon. Of course, he's got players only tonight as well, right here on 610 Sports Radio. He does it every Thursday night here on 610, and then off to Denver, and then it's got to be hard not to look ahead.
As a player,
as a player, as a fan, as a broadcaster.
He said you used to look to the bye week too. It's triple threat next week.
Yeah, I've always heard.
Look ahead to Germany, look ahead to the bye week. It's all there together.
Yeah, he mentioned how he looked at the schedule. I've always heard from former players where the bye week is the first thing they look at when the schedule comes out. We always look at primetime games, but I've heard from former players.
When am I getting that break?
They're looking at when's that bye week.
I heard Travis and Jason on their New Heights podcast joke about just staying in Germany and doing a New Heights show from Germany. I don't know if that's what he's going to do or not, or if he's going to go join Taylor like we talked about in Argentina for a show.
That's definitely a possibility. My guess is he will be somewhere that's not Kansas City during the bye week, one way or the other.
I mean, you get to live in Kansas City all the time. You don't have to spend your bye week in Kansas City. Go on vacation.
Nor should you. Go to a beach. We talked about this yesterday. Go to a beach for the bye week, please.
They can do the New Heights podcast from Buenos Aires.
I mean, for a beer drinking group of people, you would think drinking beer in Germany would be.
I mean, they do it remote anyway. It's not like Jason and Travis are in the same
room.
room.
I'm just saying, eat some sausages, drink some beers, hang out in Germany. That feels like a good on-site. They're both gonna. Well, they're not both gonna be there. Just Travis.
That's what I'm saying. They're remote, so that's really.
But he's on a bye too, so why not? He can just come join him in Germany. Jason's on a bye. They're on a bye at the same time.
Oh, perfect.
They can join
each
other.
But they're on. No. But Jason still would have to travel
Jason
to Germany.
Get to Germany.
Well, yeah, but
that's what I'm saying. They both fly down to Buenos Aires. They go to they go to a show, and then they host the podcast there.
How long till, or if ever, do you think Taylor ends up on that podcast? Do you think she ever does, or is that 2 years from now? Got to be in a relationship.
Okay, so she's obviously done talk shows and stuff like that. It took a full year of their podcast before Jason's wife was on it. My guess is that just as long as they stay together, Taylor Swift will eventually end up on one episode of the podcast. It'll probably be the most downloaded podcast in that show's history by a lot.
Maybe any podcast.
Yeah.
Ever?
Any.
Like any podcast.
It'll be the
Any
most
podcast.
downloaded episode.
Yes, ever.
During the off season, maybe when there's a split, like in her tour and also the off season.
I think it might have to be a year into the relationship.
I mean, I don't think it's that she never appears as a guest on things.
Before
So, I mean,
training camp, I think.
It doesn't seem out of the question. Look, she's also, by all accounts, incredibly personable. There's videos of her just like showing up to the theaters that this thing's playing at with regular people. She's like, "Hi guys, thanks for coming to the theater. Let's go watch it. It'll be fun." She's just like dancing to her own songs in the theater with people. So if she's willing to do that, I think she'd be willing to pop on her boyfriend's podcast.
Well, I think she
gotta
will
be
at
honest,
some point. I don't know
I'd
how soon.
ask, wouldn't you?
Well-
If you had a podcast, we have a show, and you had a super famous girlfriend, at some point I would like you to invite her to Club 610.
Well, I think it'll
Or
happen at
on
some
the
point. I
show.
just don't know how quickly.
I feel
it
like-
could take some time.
I feel like Swifties would try to say like shout out to her or tweet at her or New Heights and be like, "Hey, get her on. Find
I
a way
mean,
to get
I'm
her
sure
on."
the producers are
I
begging.
mean,
begging.
she's well aware of his podcast. That we all know. There's
I'm
no
just saying,
question.
Swifty fans are like, "Hey, can you please do your bit? Like, get her on. I want to hear her on your podcast. Like, it's not just a yeah, sure, join. It's the fans want her to be on and all that.
They've also made the adjustment where they didn't used to talk about her at all on the podcast, and now they address certain things that at least happen in their
Yeah, I'm sure
like,
that again.
"Hey,
they're-
he's talking to your dad," and they're like, "Oh God, not talking to our dad. That can't be a good." Like they at least joke about it. That's all.
Yeah, it's progressed a little bit.
You had brought up a story a couple of days ago about Michigan football
Oh yeah.
and the accusations they have against cheating. That story got way weirder if other people weren't paying attention. This gentleman straight up had a 600-page manifesto, his own words, on how he was going to take over Michigan football. Like, he was going to be in charge of all of it. Doesn't Michigan officially have the right to be like, we had nothing to do with this guy? He's Looney Tunes? The second the word manifesto shows up, Gold, concerns.
Sure. No question. Just to fill people in, backstory real quick. So there's a staff from Michigan's football staff accused of sign stealing, allegedly used illegal technology, bought dozens of tickets, and then would transfer these tickets to individuals across the country. Bought tickets for more than 30 games, 12 of the possible 13 Big Ten stadiums, 4 tickets to games featuring out-of-conference potential college football playoff contenders over the last 3 years. That's what's alleged. And now, everybody's doing some digging on this guy, and it seems really bizarre how on earth he even ended up on this staff. But no, I don't think Michigan can claim they had no idea, because who was buying all the tickets? This dude, they looked it up, was making about $55K a year. There's no way he would, he would have been spending half his salary buying tickets.
He had a 600-page manifesto about how to take over Michigan. Something tells me he'd probably be willing to splurge half his salary in order to make this plan come to fruition.
But he wasn't just getting the footage and just keeping it to himself. We're supposed to believe that Michigan never utilized the footage.
Maybe
that
he just said, "I think I've got their signs figured out," and did not explain the depth of his system.
Yeah, he's been suspended, by the way, with pay, pending the outcome. He also reportedly purchased tickets on both sides of the stadium for last weekend's Penn State-Ohio State game. Those tickets went unused because at that point, I'm sure they got wind that things were heating up. Of course, Jim Harbaugh denied knowledge of the illegal sign stealing. Nobody is saying you can't steal signs in game. Again, nobody's saying that it doesn't happen every single weekend. You cannot have someone on your staff go to opposing stadiums a week or two before you play them and just only videotape the sideline. That's the problem. That's the Spygate stuff that Belichick and company got in trouble for filming practices.
The problem is, even if I think he officially has plausible deniability, because this guy seems like he might be crazy.
Yeah.
But even if you have that, the NCAA is just going to claim lack of institutional control. It is your job to make sure members of your staff aren't going to opposing football games all the time, recruiting people to record sideline calls, and then utilizing that. You got to keep your people in check.
Yeah.
How did the hiring process go? This guy must have been intense as hell in an interview if this is the way he's acting in his real life.
Yeah, now, Matt Rule, I think, the head coach up in Nebraska, I actually think he was correct on something he said at his post-game press conference or just press conference this week. He was asked about the situation. He refused to, of course, comment on Michigan, but he was talking about signs in college football and how to benefit these quarterbacks to the next level, they need to redo the whole system. Right now, we always see, the the signs, the cardboard, right? And it's got a picture of, let's say, Taylor Swift, which means some type of play, and it's got a picture of an arrowhead, which means something else, right? That in high school and the NFL, we all know it's just communicated in the helmet of the quarterback. They call off the play, either say the play or they call out a number and it's on the wristband, whatever. In college, we all know they check over to the sideline and they have the sign, and that should be something that changes going forward anyway. Some coaches believe it should happen. A lot of coaches are against it.
They are going to be doing that, I believe, in bowl games this year. They are testing it.
Good. Well, there's no.
That was a story that came out a couple
kind
weeks
of
ago.
weird for something that big, making that much money.
There's no reason that coaches should not just have the same setup as the NFL, and you talk in the helmet of your young quarterback. I get it. He's got to learn, no doubt. But that's part of it, getting them ready for the next level.
Major League Baseball, the oldest of old man sports on the planet, switched to an electronic communication system between pitcher and catcher. College football can't get on board.
Yeah,
two days ago, Chris Vanini of The Athletic reported college football teams can use communication tech in bowls this year.
Good.
It was approved in the summer, unrelated to Michigan. So this is something that they already planned on doing in the bowl games to see how it goes and all that stuff. And then moving forward, I agree. I think it's something that universally is going to make it a little bit better.
Yeah, someone says if teams are dumb enough to use signs to call plays, they should be okay with someone finding out. Okay, that's not you can certainly understand that they need to change signs up, but you also are not allowed. It's just plain and simple. You cannot have someone solely videotaping the sideline, especially going through the effort of having them go to other stadiums before you might potentially play them in a later game. Like that's just flat out against the rules.
Given the story,
not about
though,
the signs and like how that schools should change them.
I'm not giving Michigan a pass, but I do think there's part of me that believes that this man would have said, hey, I'm going to go. I want to go to the game, and I'm just going to scout him out a little bit. All I want to do is go watch. He went about going and filming and all that other stuff, but they're like, yeah, sure, go on ahead and go attend the game and see what they're about and all that. But he went the extra distance because he seems crazy enough to say something and then go the extra mile.
Could have gone a rogue.
Yes, absolutely.
The money's the problem. The reason why I won't buy into the theory that he did it without them knowing. I just don't believe that this dude was spending half his salary on football tickets and that Michigan and
he thought that spending all of his money eventually was going to get him in charge of all of Michigan football.
I bet the team sent him there.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But
that means
they
can't
didn't
deny
know. But they didn't know he was doing that.
Saying.
Like I'm saying, he did it on his own. Like he's crazy. This guy sounds crazy enough that he would say, you know what, I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah. I just find it hard to
Everybody's
believe that.
doing this, though, of course. It's the same old story. Everybody's doing it, just don't get caught. It's college football at its finest.
Yeah, they have surveillance video in these stadiums of this guy holding, or people he sent in his tickets, I should say, holding up cell phones and solely taping the sideline. I mean, it's going to be interesting just to see ultimately what happens. If it's just a fine, a slap on the wrist, or if there's actually something more severe, or if he is just kind of the scapegoat and the university completely, of course, abandons this guy, which is very likely what's going to happen. Coming up next, we get back into the Chiefs, though. Chiefs Red Half Hour in particular, playing the Broncos the second time around, and the tricky part about the schedule for the Chiefs next here on Cody and Gold.
Cody and Gold, brought to you by...
We're seeing some news come out in the NHL. We don't really talk hockey, obviously, on the show, but it was kind of interesting because we know the NFL has really cracked down on players that may wager on either football, the NFL, or just wager in general from facilities. We know they've revised their policy. And you were just pointing out during the break, the NHL just suspended a hockey player. How many games?
41 games. But now this report, they're like, hey, they're really serious about it. They post everywhere that you can't bet on the sport, et cetera, et cetera. But this Senators Shane Pinto got 41 games, but it said because it was only 41 games, it is believed at the moment he did not bet on hockey. I was like, damn. Yeah. So he just bet in the facility and you on some other sport, NBA, NFL, and he got 41 games? We talked about the NFL just fixed this policy. The NHL should too. You can still have a punishment for betting on team facilities. I have no issues with that. We all have rules at our workplace. This can be one of the rules at your workplace. But damn, 41 games for not even betting on your sport would seem intense to me.
Yeah, they're taking a really strong stand in the NFL or in the NHL. I'm sorry, but 41 games is the first time any player in NHL history has been suspended for sports betting related.
They had a guy cut a guy with a skate, and I think he got less games than that.
How long is
he shipped a guy on the ice?
How long is the new suspension for NFL games if you bet on something other than the NFL?
2 games.
2 games? Okay, so
for the first time. Yeah. For the second time, 8, and then it's like full season is in
terms of percentages, yes, it's way worse. Getting the 41 out of however many games in the NHL, it's like half the games, I think, or something around
big
there.
Suspension. I mean, it's probably in line with what they were suspending players. Like, it's a little bit more, but it just feels like a lot.
I mean, in an 82-game schedule, and you're getting suspended for half the season.
Yeah.
So that's something. All right, let's get back to the Chiefs a little bit. And we asked Danan Hughes, would you rather play a team this quickly? And, is there advantage? If you were it sounded like you said if you won the first matchup like the Chiefs did and you're playing them so quickly that maybe there's a slight advantage for the Chiefs. I'm the only areas where you could come up with a way and you're like, all right, well, how is this game going to be way more challenging than the last one where the Chiefs, even though it was ugly, they still won by double digits, guys. And everybody in Kansas City wanted them to score 30. They only scored 19. That's what it was.
They should have scored 30, if we're being honest.
Yeah. Looking at the Broncos, what has changed? I mean, the only remote thing you could point to is the obvious, which is, well, it's a road game. You know what, though? Patrick Mahomes hasn't lost a road divisional game, all right? He's beat the Broncos 12 straight times in general. The Broncos defense last week did look a little bit better. That'd be the only thing I would point to. But it's not enough to where I'm worried they're losing the game. It's just whether or not you think it's going to be a nail-biter in Denver. Whereas Danan said it's kind of a make your season type of game if you're the Broncos. You
can save your year.
You've lost all these games, but you beat the Chiefs and you ruin in air quotes, their season. You feel better about yourself.
They're now only tied for last in points allowed per game.
Okay.
Tied.
Their defense last week was playing Jordan Love and the Packers, though. I think that's one thing you have to keep in mind. But their defense did look better. It's the first time all year the Broncos even covered. We're not even talking win. Just cover a spread. Last week was the first time the Broncos did that in their win against the Packers.
I should be betting against the Broncos way more than I have.
Yeah, you would.
Why did someone tell me this trend like 3 weeks ago?
Would have had a really nice record against the spread if we just continued
for what it's worth,
bet.
I have already put cash on the Chiefs -7 because
the line went down. It's been at 7.5.
And I didn't think it was going to go any lower than that. Seems maybe it will, but I didn't see any reason why it would go lower than that. Kind of across the board. Just looking back at the Packers, I'm like, all right, where do they score? They're the 17th ranked scoring offense in the NFL. So they're mediocre. Broncos defense did play better, but now they're without a starting safety. Like, I can't worry more. Honest to God, you would just chalking it up to the NFL is weird. That is the only logical answer you can give me for why you should worry more about this game than the last one. Other than what? Look ahead to Germany week? You're grasping at straws. The best you'd be able to do is the NFL is weird. And sometimes bad teams keep it close against good teams for whatever reason. But the fact that the Chiefs have never lost a road divisional game, this is the worst team in the division as it currently sits.
Yeah.
With Mahomes, I understand, not ever. But with Mahomes, they've never lost a road divisional game. They've beaten this team 12 consecutive times. They have the better offense, defense, coach, quarterback. I don't know that there's a single advantage. Maybe running back if I was feeling like just kind. It might be a wash, but like maybe I'm just feeling nice. I could give them
Russell
one
Wilson,
area of advantage. They're just a way better team than Denver.
Russell Wilson didn't even throw for 100 yards last time.
For
97 or something. I don't know. Yeah. Like you're, right there. Either way. But like under 100. No, he's probably throwing for over 100 in this game just because it's very difficult.
I'd like them to set the line at like 99 just to like put it
his number. I looked at it last night for that betting show, which you can download, by the way, already from last night on Odyssey, Spotify, and Apple. But I think it was over 200 yards.
200?
I'm pretty sure that's what it was at.
That's double the number he had?
Yeah.
I'm going to end up making so many bad Chiefs. I'm going to lose. I won all my Chiefs bets last week. I'm going to end up losing all of my Chiefs bets
We're
this
at
week.
the point, it was very similar to when everything launched last year for sports wagering, right? Early on the season, everybody, anytime you bet just super positive Chiefs stuff, right? You had a great week. And if you didn't, people had a bad week. Like, that's how a lot of people, I think, bet. They're like, oh, I'm just going to go all in on Chiefs stuff. Like last week, that was a great week for it. If you just bet a bunch of positive Chiefs props last week, you did very, very well.
I just bet the MVS over and I think it was line. I didn't bet a bunch, but
some people are just doing that. Look, that's fine if you're just betting as plain as simple as a fan or whatever. By the way, just updated number on Russell Wilson because you had me double guessing or second guessing. 213.5 for Russell Wilson is the number for his passing total.
The only problem with always taking those is, there's going to be some garbage time for Russ for the exact same reasons we just talked about in this game. I still can't get a line on MVS yet. They don't know where the hell to put his number.
That'll be closer to Sunday,
It's
probably.
not anywhere. I keep looking to try to bet it, but I can't get an MVS line. I was looking for reasons to talk myself into like this game being a battle or this game being a fight. And I'm not saying I'm going to panic if they end up in a fight, but there's just no reason to look on paper. There's absolutely no reason at all to think that this game is gonna look different. Like I don't have a good one for you.
Do you think, let me ask you this. So the Broncos scored 8 points and the Chiefs scored 19.
I think both score more points.
Yes. I mean, I would be stunned if the Chiefs are held under 20 again by the Broncos. I don't know if Denver's scoring a ton more, though, than they did. Like, I think it's 14 or 17 points for Denver, and this time it's closer to 28 or 24 at least for the Chiefs this go-around.
More like 28 or 30.
Because they just didn't capitalize in certain areas. As long as the Chiefs, aren't flat and they're not looking ahead, and you would like to think with a veteran head coach that he is well aware of this team knows they're
probably
going to Germany.
The lead in this meeting.
Yeah, they're Germany, the Dolphins, all that, and trying to get them to, in their minds, believe that the Broncos are obviously a team that is capable of beating them. Like, that's what he has to sell.
You can
sell
say
in the
that,
locker
but
room.
you and I both know that, like, let's say L'Jarius and Trent McDuffie are going to go get a couple of beers tonight at McDuffie's place. They're sitting
Is that
around.
right? Is that
they're
how
watching,
it's going down?
Well, just whatever, right? They're sitting around. They're watching a little TV together, whatever. They're hanging out, betting on the NBA. And I guarantee you
they're
like
betting on the NBA.
And I guarantee you that they're hanging out and they're like, God, the Broncos are such a joke. You can say whatever the hell you want in a meeting. We've all watched the Broncos play. You can't collectively convince a group that a bad team is good just because you say it out loud. You can be like, hey, we have to take them serious because you have to take every team serious in the NFL. But then there's still moments when you just don't take them serious because you've beaten them 12 straight times. Think about some of the guys like Travis Kelce. As long as he's been with the Chiefs, they've lost to the Broncos like twice. And 0 times since the year 2015. Like, it's hard. It's hard to take a team serious that you've kept under your thumb for that long. If you're looking for a little motivation this week, it turns out a player who is not on the Chiefs is providing it.
Yeah.
Micah Parsons.
Yeah,
Gold.
not on the opponent this week either. In fact, they won't play the Cowboys unless it's the Super Bowl. But I would sure use this as some motivation. Micah Parsons was speaking on a podcast about the top offenses in football. And, just take a listen.
All those teams I named have way more talent than the Chiefs. Who else in that offense do you truly fear, right? Who do you fear? Like, when you play against the Eagles, you fear that Jalen Hurts is going to run. You fear that A.J. Brown's a deep day. You fear Devontae Smith. You fear Dallas Goedert. You fear that O-line. I mean, DeAndre Swift. I mean, you have to respect. I think people come into the Chiefs and say, I know we have to respect Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes, and you almost make the game plan, them two will have to beat us.
Sounds way easier than what it is also, right?
Trashing every other,
Like-
not even mention the offensive line.
Yeah.
He mentioned Philly's offensive line.
Correct.
Didn't even give the Chiefs offensive line the time of day.
Anybody outside of Kelsey and Mahomes should absolutely use that as motivation. If you're always trying to find something to motivate you. I also just think like he just flat out wrong. Like Michael Parsons is an incredible football player, and
He was talking trash on the Niners
but,
too, which
you
ended
know-
up paying off, I guess, the last couple of weeks.
But the last time and the only time that Parsons played the Chiefs was actually it was an off game. In fairness, for Mahomes, and so they did play well. But like he's thinking that that's the same team. Look, Chiefs Cowboys Super Bowl will be the only way that we'll see them have a chance to play. But if that, by the way, if that's the mindset of anybody else in the league as well, that's good. By the way, I hope that's the mindset of a lot of defensive players when they watch the Chiefs offense. That's great. Use that to your advantage. And look, here in Kansas City, we've all said like, hey, outside of Kelsey and Mahomes, who can you trust? And I think Rashee Rice is added to that mix now. But if that's the thought process where they're like, well, you really only have to stop Kelsey. Way easier said than done. Okay, you only have to worry about Travis Kelce.
People been saying that. How long have people been trying to say that for?
Yeah.
How many times have you successfully been stopped?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Some of the comments from Micah Parsons.
Good news for Micah Parsons, although we're trashing him for this take. I actually think he was correct on a different take in this same area. He was talking about Taylor Swift showing up to the games. Yes, that's right. Micah Parsons was talking about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. He has a working theory about why Travis Kelce performs better when Taylor Swift shows up.
I saw the stat that Travis Kelce plays better when Taylor Swift is in attendance. Travis Kelce's my boy, best tight end in the league for like the past 3-4 years. So it's obviously not Taylor Swift. But I'm going to tell y'all one thing. When there is a bad girl and she's in attendance and she's watching you, that gives you an extra boost of confidence. When you pull up to the gym and your girl's with you, I don't care who's in front of me. Like, without a doubt in my mind, Kawhi Leonard could be in front of me. I gotta give him 30. I refuse to go in that car on the way home, and my girl's talking about, damn, he dropped you off today, huh? Nah, that's not happening. So you know what Kelsey's doing. I know what's going on. He was already doing it. So now it's like, yeah, I'm going to do it more now. Like, it's a swagger. It's a confidence when that thing happens. Y'all know how it go. Come on now, Pete.
You just
I don't think he's wrong. He's saying when your
mean,
girl shows up to the game, you
more
want to
motivated.
show up big.
Well, I think, yeah.
That doesn't seem wrong.
Absolutely. I mean, CBS put up that graphic. When Travis was left to his own devices, as they phrased it in the graphic, his performance was not as good as with Taylor Swift in attendance. I think there's some truth to that. Anytime, whether it's a girlfriend, wife, even if you're younger, you just have friends at the game. Like you want to show out for them. So I absolutely buy into that. What's weird about that whole thing isn't like at one point in time, Micah Parsons wasn't him and Kelsey's ex-girlfriend also involved a little bit. So it's kind of weird how he's like Travis Kelce's my dude, and I'm pretty sure that the ex-girlfriend was involved with Micah Parsons. So that's kind of weird.
That's a little bit weird. But I honestly think that Micah Parsons is onto something here. He's saying, look, you got what do you say? When you got a bad girl in the stands, he's like, you want to make sure that things are going that way. He's got to look up, and there's moments in these clips where you see him like looking up to the suites. He sees Taylor Swift there, sitting with his mom and his dad. No one's more motivated than him right now to make sure that his game shows up. I think it's different just like with a new relationship too. Think about it, like if it's my wife, right? We've been together for 20 years. Maybe you're not as like, well, I better really impress her. She's already stuck with me. Too late. I don't have to impress you with my athletic skills anymore. I wouldn't have been more motivated to win the hot dog derby if my wife was there when the three of us were racing.
Yes, you would have.
Were you more motivated?
No, I was not.
Well, it didn't work for either of you.
It did not.
No, it sure didn't.
Somebody else won.
Well, again, my wife was not there. She did not want to watch me, I guess, embarrass myself. I think he's onto something. New relationship. Taylor Swift's there. Micah Parsons says that Travis Kelce might want to show off a little bit.
Well, it was the way that Travis originally said things like, yeah, I saw you rock the stage. Why don't you come see me rock the stage, baby? Like, come on. Like, you automatically have that confidence boost, if you will. Not that Travis isn't confident already.
I was gonna say,
Does this go reverse? Does Taylor Swift want to put on a better show if Travis is there? When he shows up in a concert, does she want to put on a better performance?
I'm guessing it can be used in reverse, yeah.
She actually sings the whole 3 hours that she's there.
Well, she does reportedly anyway. Like she reportedly puts on an unbelievable 3-hour show.
She reportedly saves her voice for the show.
That's usually, I guess, how her shows go. She, I guess, is unreal for 3 hours straight almost.
What I want her to do is, pick one of these dances that Travis Kelce does, and then do it on stage as well. Like it could be the stanky leg, it could be the nay nay. It doesn't matter.
Any of the ones he's
I
known
want
for doing.
I want to see Taylor Swift do that on stage.
I
There
think
you
that this
go.
show
Some
should all
motivation.
go see the Taylor Swift movie in theaters. We should invite a bunch of
gosh.
listeners out
Goodness.
and go see the Taylor Swift movie in theaters. Hey, let's culture ourselves.
Yeah.
Just
I don't
because it's
think
not
so.
something
I'll
we would
pass.
normally go see, shouldn't we expand our horizons? Shouldn't we step outside of our
I
comfort
would
zone
go
from
to
time to time?
I would go to
try something new.
I would go to a Taylor Swift concert, but I'm not going to go to a movie theater to watch the Taylor Swift concert.
Yes, I'm with you.
But if you told me next time our tour comes around to Kansas City and tickets aren't $1,500, I will gladly go. We'll go ahead and reserve a future spot in the suite, the company suite, for that next time she comes around.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're going to cough them up for us.
Yes, we'll reserve it years in advance.
You know how dedicated your fans have to be to drop $1,500 just to see you for 3 hours? Like that's, I get, it's an experience, but $1,500, that's like nosebleeds,
everybody
correct? Or is this like this is
those were a little bit better than nosebleed, but I think
Yeah.
the cheapest get in was still $800, $900. if not
VIP
more.
must be what, like 10 grand, 15
Probably.
grand, if she
But
even
also,
has
it's
VIP.
VIP. You know what I mean? VIP is not supposed to be cheap.
People are pilling.
Correct.
Like for me, and I've never spent that amount on it, but I presume that when you're buying that ticket, you assume that this is an experience you will talk about with your friends or the people you went with forever, right? You're paying $1,200 for a lifetime experience, in your opinion, for this thing.
Yeah.
I get it in that. I think I'd probably just take a trip, but whatever. You want to spend $1,500 on the game? I don't care. Go for it.
What's the most you've ever spent on a concert ticket?
$250, $300.
I mean, that's got to be the range.
The most I've spent is 150.
Yeah. I would probably
Also, it
assume
just
somewhere in
depends.
there, a couple
Sport-
$100.
Like
Yeah.
you mentioned $1,500 for a concert. For some people, that's their sporting. Like, how many people listening are like, yo, I'd spend $1,500 to go to the. You can't because it's
Someone said
more.
they spent $1,500 to take their family to the
Well,
Chiefs
that's what I
game
was
for 3
getting at.
hours.
It's like a
Yeah.
sporting event. Yeah, like whether it's maybe not the Super Bowl, but yeah, the AFC title game. If you were at that game and you had multiple tickets, you were spending near $1,000, if not more,
only-
easily.
We paid for my grandpa and my dad to go to the game one of the World Series in 14 because my grandpa didn't get to go in 1984. My dad had obviously never been to a World Series game either. And I think we paid like $1,200. Like we all chipped in, and it was like $1,200 just to send him to a World Series game.
The only thing I would
cheap.
pay over $1,000 for is for the Super Bowl. That's
It's
it.
going to cost you more than $1,000.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But
Cost
the
you-
only thing that I
no,
will
Super
pay,
Bowl's bucket list.
the
Super
only
Bowl,
thing that I will pay.
We've been very fortunate and spoiled to have had an opportunity to go to multiple Super Bowls, and that's how I feel like now the next one on the list is going to the Masters. You went to practice round. Or
I got to
whatever.
go to a practice
Like
round.
Masters, that's the next one. Like we've been fortunate because of what we do for a living to go to some really really cool sporting events. But the Masters and like a college football national title game.
You know
would
what it
be-
is for me?
Yeah.
A World Series game. You might
You,
be
never-
like,
you didn't go?
I had to work every
Oh.
single
Oh,
game
man.
of both World Series.
I was
I
fortunate.
had to work,
gotta
and
go
not
to
at the stadium work. I was on the board for Josh Vernier for all 7 games in 2014.
Ouch, okay.
Our
That
boss
sucks.
at the time said, I want someone I can trust. I said, what if I can get to, he's like, I need you on, like whatever it was. And I was
Mm-hmm.
young in my radio career. I was on the board for all 7 games of the 2014 World
I don't
Series.
know. I thought you were there.
And in 2015, I was working elsewhere and had to be responsible for pre and post on all. So, like, I worked every single World Series game. I've never been to a World Series game outside of that. So that,
Okay.
to me, that is my
Yeah, well, if you
remaining
haven't
bucket
been, then-
list. Going
Yeah.
to a damn World Series game.
Yeah. Okay.
Man.
I did watch them. I was at both AL clinchers. I got to go to both games in which they clinched the AL pennant. So at least I got to go to some. And I was at the wild card game.
Look,
I got some cool baseball
the-
games. I just didn't get to go to World
Yeah,
Series.
the only reason why I've gone to some of these is because through work, and that's about the same. That
Yeah.
applies to that applies to the World Series and the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
and
I
the
was never
Final
going to
Four.
Super Bowl for one for work.
But yeah, Masters and like college football title game, I would say are the next 2. That after that, I'm fortunate to cross off most of these that I have any interest in going. I would say. Someone
Nice.
says spent $1,400 all inclusive resort in Dominican. That sounds like a hell of a time. Sounds like a great time.
That might be
Would you
another
do
thing
an
I'd spend
all-inclusive?
$1,000.
I think if I'm going to
You have to do
Cancun or
all-inclusive.
Bahamas or Dominican, I think all inclusive, yeah, Drew, is the only way
a
to
must.
go.
Yeah.
Only way to go. You don't want to be going off property too much anyway. You want to stay at the resort. You got everything there.
I'm just asking. I didn't know. Never done an all-inclusive vacation. I don't think you have either. So
No.
It would be worth them. Like, if you're going to do that and you're going to pay the money, it's got to be worth every single penny, if not more. I mean, just being there would be worth it, I think, but having the all-inclusive as well, that's just the icing on the cake, if you will.
someone said they Blink 182 tickets for next year going for 160.
That concert's not till next August, right? It's next August. They go on sale tomorrow.
Are
I'm
you,
gonna,
are
I'm
you
gonna try to
going?
get some free tickets for work. We just talked about it. Band of my youth. I'm gonna try to get some free tickets to work.
Yeah, I think Dusty.
What? I'm just gonna be honest.
I think Dusty already got it.
Wait, he already got the connector?
I believe there
work?
was a No. I think there was a pre-sale thing. The actual on sale is tomorrow, I believe, for Blink 182. But here's my. This is way off, not off topic, but
you don't want to buy a concert ticket for something a year from now.
Correct, 100%. I've never.
That's just the way concert tickets work now, though.
I know, but it sucks. That drives me. I have no idea what I'm doing next August.
I'll be honest.
Am I buying something a year in advance?
How bad do you want the ticket, though?
One thing I kind of like about it, though, is that by the time I get to the concert, it's like free. It feels like the concert was free. You know,
That's definitely some
money,
mental gymnastics for that one.
it's some girl math or whatever, right? But it's practically free. It doesn't matter. I spent that money a year ago. That's not real money anymore to me. It feels like I paid nothing to go to this concert.
That's a good mentality to have, actually.
I mean, whatever works, man. Like, I get what you're saying. Whatever works. But no, yeah, it's just tough for me. Like, I'm going to drop $500 on concert tickets. And the concert, you got to wait a whole calendar year. Like, I get it on a trip. You plan a trip out 8 months in advance or a year in advance. That I understand. But for just a single concert, one night at a concert, to pay for tickets a whole year early, I don't know if it's like patience or what, but I can't do it.
If it was like your favorite artist, though, then I think you would obviously be inclined to do it.
I guess. I don't know, man. Coming up next, we'll get to what's trending. We got an update on the Chiefs practice, who is and who isn't practicing, and we'll also get to all 32 and one grumpy NFL head coach.
Cody and Gold.
Last and probably most important question. Are, in fact, all opinions like buttholes?
Brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. For asphalt, concrete, and parking lot maintenance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete.
Jason Bean will once again start for Kansas. Daniels doubtful. And that was the word from Lance Leipold earlier in the week as well. So barring a complete just
It'll be his
180
fourth straight
and
start for Bean.
back issue for Jalen Daniels, and it continues to spur the rumors about, is he going to transfer or is this intentional and all that. None of us know 100%. I just don't think the transfer rumors make sense to me, because if he really was trying to redshirt or transfer, nothing prevented him from doing that after last season. It's not like this is a bad football team this year. They're 5-2. It's not like, he was once out, the program's headed in a bad direction. That's not the situation. But because colleges don't have to be transparent with injuries the way the NFL does with injury reports, you have all these rumors that come out because you're choosing, and it's their right, and it's his right as well, choosing not to share really what the problem is here. It's always like, well, we'll see. We don't know. He's progressing. We're
It's like the
not
McColl
sure.
thing. We can't be sympathetic unless you tell us what the hell's going on with the player. Otherwise, people just think it. I don't think they can beat Oklahoma without Daniels. So I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday.
Okay,
I will say this. It is a sellout. Thanks to the pressure from Rob Britton. You know what? If it weren't for the drives, Rob Britton, this thing wouldn't have got sold out. Last night, call to action. He was calling out you, Gold. He was calling out Kansas alum for not selling out a game. Big noon Saturday. At home, Oklahoma. He called to action, and then they sold out. Good for Rob.
Yeah, it's a sellout. Big noon kickoff. 11 a.m. kickoff. It's noon Eastern. That's why. Get it? Big 11 kickoff on Fox.
We're Central Time Zone. We understand that.
Big
Everything
11
is
doesn't
mentioned
sound
on
as
the
good
East
as
Coast.
big noon kickoff.
No. No. Same reason why all these teams aren't calling themselves the big whatever the hell they would be now.
Yeah.
Big 12 and Big 10 would be decidedly different numbers, I guess, if we were just changing things to match up from where they're playing.
That's what's trending. Coming up at 1 o'clock, we'll talk a little fantasy football. Paul Charchian, GuillotineLeaks.com. He'll tell us who to start this weekend. Could the Vikings be making maybe some change at starting running back? And what about tonight, right? Baker Mayfield, he's been pretty effective, so do you keep on rolling with him tonight? All that going to be answered, and maybe a question or two from you coming up at 1 o'clock for our conversation with Paul Charchian. We were discussing with Danan Hughes also about the wide receivers. And I still think, while you're correct in what you said, which is, not everything is suddenly fixed with the offense.
Fine now.
I'm with you. I'm not trying to say that. But I do think going into this Sunday, and really the rest of the year, every Sunday, I think now there are two players in the passing game that I am going in thinking is smooth sailing, that I know what I'm getting. In fact, one of them, the ceiling, we don't know what it is yet. I'm talking about, of course, Rashee Rice. I think it is, you know what you're getting from Travis Kelce, the Hall of Famer, and now I'm confident that we know who's showing up alongside him, and the only other player I can say that about is Rashee Rice. Those are the two, and then the question is, on a weekly basis, who's the rotational third guy that's going to step up? Last week, it was MVS. We'll see if it's him again. Is it going to be Sky Moore? Is it going to be, I would have said Jerick McKinnon in the passing game, but he's currently dealing with a groin injury, so we'll see. I think there's two guys in the passing game for the first time now all year that I know going into a game, that those are two guys I can count on. And I think the organization is feeling that way now with his snap count continuing to go up.
Well, and the Eagles might be a little bit different because they just made a signing in their secondary to try to help this. We'll get a pretty flavor of this, won't we? Because the wide receivers are going up against 3 bottom 15 passing defenses in the NFL, in Philadelphia, Miami, and the Broncos, who are third worst in the NFL. I'm just telling you, maybe don't just feel like wide receiver problem solved. Because the truth is, if you go back and watch that game, obviously the offense was great. And we know this offense can work without the ability to have elite level wide receiver play. But it was Rashee Rice had a pretty standard, good game, confident, liked it. MVS finally had his one long catch, which he is good for from time to time, typically in previous seasons, had not been this year, and no one else showed up. Which means if MVS just didn't show up, we'd probably feel a little bit different about the wide receivers. Or if Rashee Rice went back to being a 30 or 40-yard wide receiver. I think what you're saying is you don't think the regression is ever coming back on Rashee Rice. That these snaps means he is a 50, 60, 70-yard wide receiver in your mind most weeks now going forward. I will say the Vegas market hasn't fully caught up to that. They have obviously jumped his numbers significantly, but they still put him in that 40 range. They don't think he's just locked and loaded. What we talked about, right? The original Tyler Boyd comparisons where you would assume most weeks he's good for 60, 70 yards kind of without question. I hate that I'm less worried about the offense overall because now Kelsey's body seems to be catching back up and they're using him again. But I am still like, God, for a wide receiver unit who we were saying, hey, the balance is what's going to make them great. They still have 2 people in that unit who are complete no-shows. just do not exist inside of their offense. That's honestly where my concerns are of we're going to have 2 or 3 more games where we're like, ugh, wide receivers, right? Because Tony and Sky Moore do not exist for them offensively. That's really what this boils down to. I feel good about Rice too. Maybe not quite as good as you because it's 7 games and I'd like to see a little bit more. Normally we're on the opposite end of that, so it's fine.
Yep.
But that's fine. I don't blame you for feeling that way about Rice. But with Sky Moore and Tony, until they have some involvement in this offense, it's not that they're 9 deep. They are 3 deep, and they still need MVS to show up, which is an inconsistent player. So I don't feel like the consistency is there yet with that unit where I can just pencil them in as a group yet. It's just Kelsey and Mahomes. That's what I'm banking my entire future on most of. By the way, worst things to bet your life on.
Yeah, I was going to say, not a terrible spot to actually be on whatsoever as the Chiefs get set to take on the Broncos, and we will keep an eye on the injury status, as we mentioned, the 2 new names that have popped up. One with Butker, the illness, luckily it's an illness. It's not a soft tissue injury or anything like that. McKinnon, groin injury, maybe that keeps him out. You were also earlier this week saying you wanted to see Les Clyde. I got bad news for you. If McKinnon can't go, he will get some more playing time.
So kind of just the things the opposites of?
Twitter and text line are not happy with you right now. This tweet says, Butker didn't practice. It's all to blame on Cody Tapp. At Alex Gold, please do not let him mention Butker anymore. Make his name like a swear jar. Every time Cody says Butker, $1 goes to the show fund. And it had the meme of Will Smith, of course, with keep my kicker's name out your mouth.
I will say this. There is a piece of audio we do need from the press conferences today, and it relates to the audio we played of Chris Jones yesterday when he was talking about a potential nickname for himself that included this response.
I'm just Chris Jones.
The Hammer?
I don't know. Whatever y'all want to call it, y'all.
I just want to point out that Steve Spagnuolo was talking about Chris Jones today, and he said, and I'm not kidding,
no.
Chris Jones, God gifted Chris Jones with appendages.
That's a real quote. That's a real quote.
Maybe he just meant long arms.
Well, yeah, that's what he meant, Cody. That's what he meant. He's 6'5", 6'6".
But we're probably going to want that cut to go with that.
This goes back to yesterday because
kind of roll those together into one clip together.
The question was, hey, Charles Omenihu said he's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. How would you describe yourself? And he said, I'm just Chris Jones. And then someone said in the background, the Hammer? And he started laughing.
He said, you can call it whatever you want.
It's talking about, the problem is he said it. I don't deep down think he was talking about what you think he's talking about.
He was laughing the whole time.
Well, I think he thought it was because the way it was phrased made it seem like that, yes. I don't think he actually was talking about it. And Steve Spagnuolo, my guess, is talking about the 6'6" Chris Jones, not the 40-yard dash combine part of Chris Jones.
It's hard to say. It's back-to-back days now. I don't know what to tell you. When it starts coming back up again, I don't know how we're not supposed to at least discuss it on this show. Is there any wide receiver that do you trust MVS after one game?
No, but
he is less reliable than last year, which is what I don't like. He is what he is, but he's less reliable than that.
So far, up until last week, he really had not done anything. He'd been getting the routes, but there had been zero production. So I don't think suddenly you should think that this Sunday MVS is going to have another 60-plus yard game. If you go back and look at his game log from a year ago, there were a couple times he'd stack 2 games together, 60-plus yards, and the next week he'd have 20, and then he'd have 40, and then he'd have 10, and then he'd have 70.
And we were fine just as long as the 40s and 70s came.
But that's fine. Like, if this Sunday against the Broncos he has 25 yards, nobody should be like, oh, my God. Like,
no, just as long as next week he has 45 yards.
Correct. Because that's how you get back to the 650, 700-yard range. If you think he's suddenly getting 65 every game, well, then you all of a sudden believe he's a 800
Is there going to be a second wide receiver who finishes with more than 700 yards? Rashee Rice is barely on track for that right now, but we know that his playing time is getting ready to increase. MVS going to get to 7? He's never. Wait, no, never mind. He's never gotten to 7 before. He's not getting to 7.
Okay. You and I always say.
But I'm just like I said the number 7. He's not getting to that number if he's never technically gotten
13 yards away. So it's okay if you say 700. If you want to say that, can you get to say like he's 13 yards away? Just like Juju last year was like 20 yards from 1,000. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. It's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's not the end of the world.
I'm not sure MVS is getting to 6.
Yeah, well, he might not. Yeah, he may not be able to do that. Text line is correct, 913-586-7610. Chris Jones might listen to a lot of AM radio.
Yeah, that might be.
Yeah. Just make sure you listen longer and listen harder.
Those shirts available at
I wore
raygunsite.com.
it last week.
But also, just if you haven't heard, we'll be doing another Taylor Swift t-shirt drop tomorrow. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, upon popular demand, I have 50 more shirts from Raygun. These time that say, Go Taylor Swift's Boyfriend, with a little football underneath it. Some have already been requested from the building. I ordered more than 50 so that I can accommodate the people in this building. I thought last time I lost like 8 shirts inside the building. I didn't feel like that was fair to the listeners. So if you are interested in a Taylor Swift Raygun t-shirt in that Chiefs colored red, they will be available tomorrow starting at 11 o'clock until they are gone. We will sell them this time. Instead of for $15, we dropped the price. Because someone told me that they shouldn't be 15, they should be 13 because that's an important number for her. So they will be $13 tomorrow instead of 15. I accept only Venmo and cash. I assume no one still writes checks, and certainly wouldn't write a check to a person standing on a curb outside of his building. We are at 7000 Squibb Road, if you need to know where
11
we
a.m.
are here at Odyssey.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. we will do that.
All 32.
So I don't expect, nor should, any coach in any sport to give a damn about fantasy football or sports betting. They got more important things to worry about. Nobody's suggesting that. However, in the NFL in particular, there are still protocols and rules you do have to follow when reporting injury information. We go down to Atlanta for this one, and Arthur Smith. So last week, Falcons are playing the Bucs. They got the win. Right? That's all that matters to him. That's fine. But if you were a fantasy football player or a sports bettor, you might have been a little frustrated because out of nowhere, the game starts and like Cordero Patterson and Tyler Algier are getting all the carries. You're like, what the heck is going on? Midway through the game, there's an NFL sideline reporter does an interview with Arthur Smith. Says, oh yeah, Bijan Robinson, our rookie that we spent one of our top picks on. He was sick last night. That's not what he's playing. Oh, okay, thanks. No problem. Appreciate that. Well, the NFL's investigating because he never once popped up on the injury report. So some of you might be thinking, like, well, what's the big deal? Well, even if it happens the night before, if someone gets sick, you don't have to say how much he's going to play, but you have to at least
say they're sick.
Have the information out there that, he's dealing with an illness. Now more than ever, this is important with all the sports betting conspiracies and things like that. So a lot of the sports betting community was upset. I did not have a bet. Don't worry, that's not why I'm upset about this. I did not have a bet on Bijan Robinson. It's the principle of it. So the NFL's investigating the Falcons. So then Arthur Smith yesterday was asked a couple times about the investigation.
On the league's inquiry on the injury report in Bijan's situation.
Are you talking about like sensationalized things? Look.
That's kind of the inquiry.
No, I mean, guys, if you guys really understand how things really operate, I understand outrage and drama sells. Guys, if you really understand how things really operate, that there's nothing there. So I don't know what. I haven't given 1 second of thought about it. Mike, we're not going on this. We'll talk about the Tennessee Titans, the big game we have going on. I'm not, you can ask rumors and innuendos. I can go find sensational stories. We can talk about climate change. What's your thought on climate change? You want to go down that road? We'll talk about world politics. We can do that too. I'm sure you got an opinion. What's your thought on climate change? No, I'm just saying. That's what you're doing here. Let's talk about the Titans and talk about the Falcons and talk about football. No, you got to do your job, but I'm just saying, everything you do, it's 2023. Everything is transparent.
It's 2023.
Also, this is about football, dude.
Very defensive. It is, very defensive. Yeah, your
Let's
team.
keep it about football. This technically is.
Your team is under investigation for potentially not reporting an injury which is required. So someone's asking, and then you got to go down this road. You're sensational. Anyway, Arthur Smith seems like an ass. And we'll see what happens going forward. But yeah, you're required to report injuries, and now more than ever with sports betting, it is important. Not just because I'm the sports betting guy here or whatever, but that's a rule. You shouldn't care as a head coach about sports betting, but you still have to follow the protocols with the information. That's my all 32.
It's very weird. I'm stuck at the quarterback position where I think the Packers have once again kind of, in a way, screwed themselves. I know that they've got another year after this one, but they're not giving themselves enough time to figure out about Jordan Love. This is why when you're ready to make the move at quarterback, maybe you do a year, right? Maybe. Maybe you sit him for a year, but you better not have a plan that's any longer than that before you get the guy in the field. Because Jordan Love does occasionally show signs of being a capable starting NFL quarterback. But because you're only going to get part of this year, in which he has no weapons, by the way, he has no weapons to throw to, so you only get half of the story. Let's say next year you finally put some weapons with him, and you get the full story, and he's only owed $13 million. Well, then he's a free agent. Yeah, maybe you can tag him, but at what price point? When you don't start these young quarterbacks so long, you don't give yourself enough time to figure it out. Honest to God, what you want is 3 full years under a rookie deal to decide if you need a new quarterback, unless it goes epically bad. For Jordan Love, he's stuck in that middle ground where you actually need the years to figure out where they are. Benjamin Solak had a really good article up on it on The Ringer where you're just like, well, now what do you do? Desmond Ridder might be in a similar situation, but at the very least, he's in the second year of a rookie deal. They got 3 more years or 2 more. They got years to figure this thing out.
Jordan Love decided to take the guaranteed money early, basically, instead of playing it out. And that's why he's signed a 1-year, $22.5 million extension, which precedes the $20 million fifth-year option that he had. I mean, I think financially, actually, the Packers are fine on this, where it's like nobody's saying they need to be making a decision to give him an extension from a multi-year perspective anytime soon. They're probably going to have a good idea after this season what he is, and if not, before they ever give him the big payday after next year, like they're not going to be upset if you tell me that next year suddenly Jordan Love figures it out and then they have to pay him. I don't think they're going to care. It looks like right now that Jordan Love made the smart decision to get the money while he could, because he doesn't look like he's going to be much of anything. Everybody freaked out after week 1 when he looked great against Chicago. Now it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. They're stuck in and look, maybe when you're stuck in this like purgatory, a lot of times I just tell you, stop living in purgatory, and instead, if you're not a Super Bowl contending team, burn it to the ground, find a new quarterback, and move on with your life.
But there's a
If
lot
you're moving on from Love, just move on from his ass. Don't wait around. If you're going to draft a quarterback, start them.
Yeah,
I hate waiting on quarterbacks for too long is not a successful plan.
I mean, we just heard from Arthur Smith. I don't think, even though they're first in their division right now, none of us think Desmond Ridder is actually anything.
I think more of Love than Desmond Ridder at this point. And I'm not a believer really in either. I just feel like if you made me go forward with one, I would go forward with Love.
Do you guys believe in Sam Darnold?
This weekend I do.
Oh,
against your
gosh,
Cincinnati Bengals.
That must have been music to your ears. Look at Drew rooting for injuries.
No,
so happy Brock Purdy was hurt.
All right.
Hope he has long-term concussive problems. That's what Drew was
As
saying
I
last
texted
night.
you,
Very happy.
As I texted you as soon as it happened, I want the Bengals to play teams when they're at their best. I want to see where they're at.
Nobody actually.
You don't right now. You guys need wins.
You do not want teams at their best right now.
No, I do.
Because you're not your best.
You know what I want? I want the Bills to be, well, they're not going to be because they've lost a lot of guys to injury, but I want the Bills to be at their best. I want the 49ers to be at their best, because when the Bengals win, I want people to remember that if this team makes the playoffs, just look out. I will say this. The one thing in my All-32 is I think they do need to be wary, because it's Kyle Shanahan, and he's regardless of what I think or you think or anybody thinks about Sam Darnold, Kyle Shanahan can make him a very good quarterback, and he's going to be, I don't know if just as effective is the right word, but he'll be effective enough where they're still favorites in this game, mind you. They're still 3.5 favorites.
Think about it. This is how far your Bengals have fallen down. I just want to point this out. A couple things that you're now saying, like, if they make the playoffs, look out. Before it was like seeing the AFC title game. So just wanted to point that out. The other part is
it's shifted.
Cody thinks we're making it because he put them as a top 5 team.
The other part of it.
Schedule might
look, Cincinnati
prove me wrong quick.
I know.
And Cincinnati might still make the playoffs, but that is a big if. They got a lot of wins still to come up with, and their schedule's extremely difficult.
The Bengals have won on the road in the playoffs before. They'll be okay.
It's not the same Cincy team, man. Not the same Cincy team.
Yes, it is.
Salty.
It's not the same team. We've all watched them.
The thing that's different about the Bengals right now, with Joe Burrow fully healthy, is the defensive line, or the run defense, sucks. They are awful.
That's
going up against Christian McCaffrey.
That's a big problem against San Francisco.
This is also why I think it's interesting. Going back to the real quick rewind, Patrick Mahomes said last year he wants to play the Bengals, but he thought they matched up better against the Bills because they don't run the ball very much. So that's where, if the Bengals make it, they've got an effective enough group, and offensively they're starting to get back in another gear. Joe said he's basically as close to 100% as he's been so far this season. He's running around. I do think given the 49ers struggles a little bit, that's what worries me more maybe about this game is they're on a 2-game losing streak. They're more motivated. What do they do on Sunday? Can they put together a full 60-minute performance?
What
I don't know.
What an interesting couple of weeks this is, right in the middle of the season for the AFC. Cincinnati's got a really difficult part of their schedule. If they lose too many of those games, they're going to feel like they're out of the playoffs. The Bills tonight against the Bucks, you're like, well, if they drop that and they're 4-4, then
That's really tough.
where do we put them in this conversation? Then you get Chiefs Dolphins 2 weeks from now to figure out kind of where those two teams stack up against each other. It's a fascinating middle of the season stretch for the AFC, kind of across the board of where these teams kind of stack up and where they belong in the entire AFC conversation. We know the Chiefs belong in the conversation, but I kind of want to know where Miami stacks up against us. Plus, then there's that mystery Tyreek Hill injury.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though. Spags thinks that Chris Jones is great.
I'm just Chris Jones.
The hammer.
I don't know. Whatever y'all want to call it, y'all.
Chris, obviously, God gave them appendages.
Coming up next, the one problem the Chiefs do seem to have still, and the random question of the day.
Cody and Gold on 610 Sports.
Bahamas, and I said, well, they got to at least put it somewhere with a beach. And then I jokingly said, just put it in Kansas City. And we're like, oh, they're not going to put it around landlocked cities. You just told me during the break.
Charlotte.
Guess where they're going? Charlotte. So it could have been Kansas
You're
City.
going to play in the Bahama Bowls in Charlotte.
Could have been KC. I mean, I thought they would at least move it to Puerto Rico or somewhere along the beach.
They could have gone to Myrtle Beach, the Myrtle Beach Bowl, have 2 bowls there, right there, where Coastal Carolina is.
Go out to San Diego, beautiful San Diego, done something.
Yeah.
You think they should have put them somewhere sunny and warm? Is what you're
that's
saying.
messed up. Bahamas Bowl, and now you're going to Charlotte. And look, I'm sure Charlotte's a very nice place, much like how people say,
it's a good city.
Kansas City or whatever. I'm sure Charlotte is actually a great place to live. But you're not really excited to visit Charlotte when the bowl is called the Bahamas Bowl. So anyway, disappointing. And now I'm more upset, actually, not because it's Charlotte, just the idea that they really were able to consider places that didn't have an ocean.
Would you have rather had it be Kansas City?
Move it to KC. Bahamas Bowl for 1 year in Kansas City. We got a stadium.
MAC versus Conference USA?
I don't know if the scheduling would have worked out to when the Chiefs were at home and when the bowl game. I don't know when the Bahamas Bowl is.
To try to keep more people going to the Myrtle Beach Bowl, by the way, they are moving theirs 2 days earlier. So they're changing the data. There's like, hey, we're still doing one in Myrtle Beach because people beach, bowl games. They're like, you can do yours a couple days later in Charlotte.
I'm not even
joking.
joking.
They're not offering them the stadium. They're just saying, you could do it in this state. Just a different city.
Dead serious. They should move it to Shawnee.
Shawnee, Kansas, yeah.
Shawnee, Oklahoma.
That'd be a really interesting place.
I'm talking like put it in one of these high school stadiums. I'm dead serious. You pack the house.
High school
Conference
stadium.
USA.
That's embarrassing and degrading to these.
Better than one of those Texas high school stadiums.
Conference
at least.
USA and the MAC though.
No.
The MAC. There's teams in the MAC that have like, I don't know, it's 15,000 seats, but pack the house. I mean, make it look good instead of putting in a Bank America field where there's going to be the lower level's not even filled.
I'm with you where it's going to look weird, but you can't be playing a college D1 bowl game at a high school stadium, man. You can't be doing that unless, like Cody said, like some of the Texas ones are nicer than some of the college.
Yeah.
But But that's the exception.
All right.
Drew wants to play this at Shawnee Mission South High School.
Telling you, Shawnee Mission South.
Drew wants college bowl games out at Shawnee Mission's athletic facilities or at ODAC in Olathe. Like, come on, man.
Does it not look better, though, to pack the house than it does for
it looks better at a high school
level
stadium?
Okay. We tried to pack the house for the Creed is Good video, but we were only able to get about 100 people there.
Winnetonka Stadium. I still want the video of Cody's talent show, by the way. Please.
You're just going to keep calling to action on this, hoping that one person who I went to high school with is listening to this show and he can dust off some VHS tape that their parents took of the 2001 Winnetonka talent show.
You might be able to go to the high school itself and say, "Hey, do you have footage of these plays?" Like
Why would I go to the high school just to embarrass myself? You guys want the video? You talk to my high school.
Call up the high school.
I'm not reaching out. Well, honestly, I don't remember being all that embarrassed at the time of it. I thought it was funny at the time. I don't know what it looks
like
like
you should
now.
still feel that way,
There's
though.
a chance. Yeah, but you know how like you do something and then you're like, maybe it was funny. What if we play this whole video and like the crowd is silent?
Well, that'd be great.
Right?
That'd be great.
I don't have a good enough memory of what the crowd reaction was like. But if it's like sterile and my singing's really awkward, I think there's a chance for potential embarrassment out of this video. I don't fully remember what it was like.
Coming up in 20 minutes, Paul Charchian, GuillotineLeaks.com will get set for Fantasy Football Week number 8. We're also about 10 minutes away from the random question of the day. Back to the Chiefs, though, Cody. And if there's one thing other than, hey, the wide receiver room hasn't been as effective as everybody would have liked, that you can pinpoint for a team that is 6-1, top 5 in all 3 phases, there's one area, it's turnovers, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a consistent problem for the Chiefs, especially in the first half of seasons. I went back and looked at just the first halves, and they've been negative in the turnover differential each of the last 2 years before this one at this same time of the season. Right now, they're net 0. The reason why they're 0 is not because they're giving it away less. It's because they're taking it away more. I don't think that should allow you to be complacent. I went back through, like, if you go through the Chiefs games right now and you're like, hey, how was that game a little bit closer? The answer to every single one of their, it was a little too close games is turnovers. Not shocking, right? They were the better team in that Jaguars game. Why was that a 1-score game in the fourth quarter when they held Trevor Lawrence down to nothing passing, nothing rushing, no touchdowns, right? Because they were giving the ball away to Jacksonville. It is officially the okay, I guess it's the time of year where once again I have to plead with you, stop giving the damn ball away. One good thing is, I feel like if McCole Hardman returns punts the rest of the year, he's never really had a particularly hard time holding onto the ball, so that's good. Usually Patrick Mahomes' pacing for interceptions is higher in the first half of the season than it is the second. Okay, I'm down to reduction a little bit, which is all I'm asking for. Stop having Blake Bells of the world make bad decisions, make fumbles inside of this. I'm not worried about it yet, but we have to monitor it every year because it keeps coming up, and it's the only way Denver stays in this game, right?
Yeah, that's how you allow games to be close. I mean, it's the most probably longest lasting since the dawn of time, cliche, win the turnover battle, right? And there's a reason why cliches happen sometimes or whatever. Sometimes they're true, right? And in this case, it absolutely is. But the Chiefs, because of their personnel and who they are as a football team the last couple of years and in this year, they have more wiggle room with it, you have to admit, right? Their margin of error within that.
And more so now that they're taking it away.
You have 3 turnovers, you're supposed to lose, okay? You have 3 turnovers, you are not supposed to win games. The Chiefs won one where they had more turnovers and more penalties than Jacksonville and found a way to win that game.
They're the better team the whole game.
That's not normal. And look, you do that in a Super Bowl or something, you're going to lose, and that's why the bar is raised and they're judged off of the Super Bowl bar. That's where they're at here in Kansas City. But their wiggle room is just much larger in a regular season game in terms of turnovers than other teams. You know, if you're what we consider just a pretty average team, a fringe playoff team, you turn the ball over 2 or 3 times and lose the turnover battle, yeah, you're probably losing. The Chiefs, it's not as simple as that with them. But in terms of just margin of victory, you're saying, hey, how did the Denver Broncos keep this thing within a field goal heading into the fourth quarter?
Take the ball away.
Most likely it's because there was a bizarre turnover or something that happened on a punt return or whatever it may be. It's why the Colts game a year ago ended up resulting in a loss. It was multiple turnovers on special teams, I think it was, and you had a big pick late in the game from Mahomes.
Do you think that the Broncos are going to go back to Patrick Surtain on Travis Kelce on third down?
Yes.
Spags mentioned that, and it's something that they've done. Andy mentioned it as well. They went straight to the corner on Travis Kelce in third down situations in an attempt to try to, I guess, hold things down. What are you looking at back there?
Oh, we just there's people in the bullpen. Someone brought in a cake or whatever. They're out there smiling and laughing. I'm just looking over in the corner.
Okay. You were smiling, and
it was funny. They were all laughing.
You looked more invested in that than our conversation, so I wanted to.
Yeah, I was smiling. Oh, I'm listening to you.
I wanted to see what was going on.
I wonder if they put Pat Surtain on him before third down after they've given up 8 catches for 75 yards on first and second down when they play zone.
I mean, he's a very good cover corner. There's no doubt about it. But as we know, the problem with putting a corner on a tight end all the time is the body size differential between that is still going to cause problems. Did you guys watch the Mic'd Up for Travis Kelce? The one that NFL put out?
I watched part of it,
Matlock, the former, the rookie from Boise State that he talked to.
It only made me feel better about the Kelce statements I made on this air because I watched him play, and at no point am I like, man, Kelce's really busting it, right? He's just running as fast as he can. He's quicker than anyone. Sometimes Travis Kelce looks like he's moving in slow motion and is still 7 yards clear of anyone who's going to stop him from catching the football. His skill set, what he does on the field part of it. If you watch that clip, it highlights what he does on the field and why that doesn't age. We've talked about with wide receivers and these other plays. It just looks so different.
Yeah, nobody's better at finding space, and nobody's better I think Nate Taylor always says, right, nobody's better at being fluid at the top of his routes, right? Just if you watch it and how he's able to, he just knows where to be, and he's just smooth in the right.
You don't know which way he's going to go.
He's smooth he's just smooth when he's doing that, and otherwise when he's just walking around on the field, you're like, man, he looks old when he's walking off the sideline. He looks old after plays, walking off the sideline. Then when it's actually time to play, just as smooth as it gets. So that's what the great ones have been able to do, and he certainly fits in that category as well. Someone is right on the text line. The Blake Bell fumble, I still think that was an incorrect call on the challenge. I do believe that was an incomplete pass. It should not have been a fumble.
Very confused.
Never caught it.
That was one of and I'm not normally complaining at the announcer guy, but I felt like Tony Romo was out to get the Chiefs in that game.
Oh, you're right. I always hate that. I always hate that when people, you're right. We all have done it. I always hate this, the announcers are out to get my team. I hate that.
It wasn't that, but it was just every call he was like, oh, that's a fumble, no doubt. I'm like, are we watching the same thing? And then later when he was talking about whether or not the Chiefs had fumbled on a play that they called him down, he's like, that's the fumble. Literally everyone else, including the rules, and it's I don't know if there's enough there. He's like, that's fumble. Say ball, it's moving. You're like, all right, relax, Tony. You got everybody against you.
There's just something about some of these announcers. I feel like everybody gets a little bit irked by.
Yeah,
everybody thinks that announcers pro their team or anti their team. We've all done it, right? In Kansas City during the World Series run, Joe Buck or whatever. Like, I used to think Randy Cross, couldn't stand that guy, former announcer for CBS, obviously played for the Raiders, I believe. Like,
He probably did really hate the Chiefs.
Maybe because of the Raiders connection there, but like I didn't. Yeah, I always thought he was out to get the Chiefs on his calls.
I'm just talking in general. I love the Bengals, but I got sick and tired of hearing chases on the case every single time Jamar caught the ball. It was so annoying. It's like, Tony, pick something else to say.
Yeah, I mean, every announcer has something. Heck, even Gus Johnson tried to make Maserati Marv a thing way too often during the Ohio State game this past weekend.
Wait, he kept saying.
By the way,
yes, he did.
Marv?
Randy Cross, 49ers, not Raiders. Sorry. So, I said Raiders. You're good.
Maserati Marv.
Like the first time he said it, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty clever." He tried to wait. You can't just say it
Trying
7
to
times.
Chapin.
Maserati Marv was good the first time, Gus.
Yeah, we'll pass.
Random question.
For you, Gold. For you, Drew, over in the text line, 913-586-7610. Of course, over on our streaming channels as well, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. We're back on Facebook as of, I don't know, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Whenever they regained me access due to my security clearance, I have cleared our security measures at work. The question I have for you today is, do you think a lawsuit should be allowed in this situation specifically?
Okay.
Story out a couple days ago. A family of a unfortunately deceased person is suing Panera because their loved one had a heart issue that would cause drinking or consuming caffeine a problem for them medically, and they were drinking what is called charged lemonade.
Yeah, I think that's important, by the way.
Panera.
The name, very important.
It's called charged lemonade. She drank it. It eventually passed away, and now they're suing because they're like, hey, you didn't tell us how much caffeine was in this. Now, I'll tell you, it does say on the list caffeine. It's not super bold. Also, do you ever think of lemonade as being caffeinated? I would have not assumed a jug of lemonade had caffeine in it. Sugar, fine.
Mm-hmm.
Caffeine. I think what's important, I want to give you one more detail before you answer whether or not you sue for this.
Yeah.
The large version of this drink would contain 390 milligrams of caffeine.
Yeah.
That is the equivalent of drinking 5 Red Bulls. One of these drinks would be the equivalent of drinking 5 Red Bulls. Do you think they should be allowed to sue?
No.
What?
No.
What do you mean?
A couple
you
reasons.
Can't just be sneaking in 5 cans of Red Bull on people?
Couple reasons why.
It's too much caffeine.
Couple reasons. One, obviously it's terrible somebody died in this situation here, but it was a student that had a heart condition, and you're drinking something. I said the name's important here. What do you, legit question, if we just did a random survey.
How often is lemonade caffeinated?
Hold on, if we did a random question and I told you that the drink was blank charged, what do you think, honestly? What
Electrolytes. What? It can't be electrolytes?
I'm just asking.
It can't be more sugar?
To me, when it's charged, it's either alcohol.
I was going to say alcohol.
Because spiked is normally the word we use, but charged, I would think either alcohol or I would think it's got a bunch of this energy drink crap or whatever in this thing.
I want to see what it looked like when she got it.
And so
it looks like lemonade. I'm looking at the photo.
I'm talking about if there's a label that had like a battery or something like that, or like with a lightning bolt. So
the label is not particularly overt in the amount of caffeine would be in
the
it.
condition this individual had that passed away, it's awful, had to do with when she was 5 years old, she has to avoid energy drinks and other highly caffeinated beverages. That's in the complaint with this lawsuit. And obviously, as you pointed out,
it doesn't say how many milligrams are on the list. How the hell are you supposed to know it has 390 milligrams of caffeine?
She got the large 30-ounce charged lemonade, contains nearly 390 milligrams. You're supposed to, again, now she wasn't just a normal individual in terms of the milligrams she could consume. Hers was a different level, but normally a healthy adult can consume just above that per day. This was in one drink, but she was not able to consume the normal amount because of the heart condition that she had. I mean, it's a terrible situation.
But this is a ridiculous amount of caffeine to put in a drink.
For
what the hell
sure.
is Panera doing? Why are you putting 390 milligrams in one single drink of caffeine?
Cody,
How jacked up do you need people to be walking around every
that's
day?
a different question than whether or not you can sue for, unfortunately, in this case, someone lost their life. Like, saying, like, they shouldn't have, like, theoretically, Coca-Cola shouldn't have as much sugar in it that it does, but it does. You know what I mean? Like, saying that it
It's on
shouldn't.
the damn can, at least.
Saying it shouldn't have caffeine in it, I don't, from a health standpoint, like, just flat out, like, a health standpoint, sure. Like, if we're just going with that logic, then we shouldn't be allowed to buy donuts either. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't agree with, like, well, it's just not healthy. The question is whether or not they needed to have a warning on the cup or something because of that. And lawyers and that are going to have to figure that out. I just think like having it called charged to me saves them a little bit here.
I just think if you walked into 99.999% of restaurants and there was a thing, it's not a bar, it's a restaurant, and there was a thing full of lemonade, 99.99% of the time, I don't know that I'd even read the label. That's lemonade. Lemonade has sugar. I'm okay to have that, according to my doctor.
Yeah.
I'm good to drink the lemonade.
Yeah,
I don't think I would immediately think, I bet there's 5 Red Bulls worth of caffeine in this lemonade I'm about to drink.
Text
Maybe we
line's
should
behind you.
label this.
Charged means electric means electrolytes.
Yeah, they're with me. Electrolytes.
I am in
What do you mean that's not accurate? You could think charged electrolytes.
You could, but that's not. But that, like, you're acting like it's like a fact, as if that's what charged means in the definition. And I'm telling you, no, that's still very subjective.
I've never seen anything else labeled charged for caffeine either. I've never seen it been like Coca-Cola charged, double the caffeine. I've never seen charged listed anywhere on any drink.
I mean, can't you technically sue for anything, but you're not going to win? Like,
of course,
like they can sue, but I'm in the camp of Gold, where I feel like
Of course you can sue. You can get thrown out, too.
People are out here calling me an ambulance chaser.
the ruling would be in Panera's favor, I think, for the reason that Gold pointed out. I do think.
Look,
I think you need to warn how much caffeine's in it. That's way too much caffeine to not tell somebody they're getting ready to
Here's
drink.
on their website. So you go to the Panera website, okay? Because, by the way, this is not a new item. Like, that's the other thing. This is not like some new product. It's been out for a while. Charged lemonades, here's how they phrase it. Charged lemonades power up with refreshing Fuji apple, cranberry, strawberry, lemon mint, or mango citrus. Need an instant energy boost? The new Panera Charged lemonades are the ultimate energy drink, guaranteed to charge up your day.
I can't believe that Panera... they're just like legalizing. This is an incredible
They're
amount of caffeine.
They're
to
not
some
trying to hide it. It says plant-based and clean with as much caffeine as a dark roast coffee. Like,
that's not accurate. As much as a dark roast coffee.
My point is, like, they're not hiding that it's an energy drink. I guess to me that's going to be part of their defense. Likely, I hate supporting and defending corporate America here. I guess, but
I can't. Yeah, what's wrong with you?
But I don't actually. It's
By
again,
the way,
it's
a
horrific.
typical cup of dark roast coffee, 12-ounce cup, has 51 milligrams. That's quite the misleading information.
It says
only has
plant-based, clean
6 times the amount of a cup of dark roast coffee.
But it mentions the word new Panera Charged Lemonade's ultimate energy drink.
Nah, dude, Ultimate's just like things people put next to energy drinks.
Dude, if I got a heart problem,
Ultimate.
Cody, if I have a heart problem and I've known since I was 5 years old that I should have not much caffeine, if I should not drink energy drinks.
Do you really?
Someone's pointing out that, how often do you go to the company's website before you order from a restaurant?
Right.
No, but I'm reading it from the website. It's not like in the nutritional facts, guys. It's in the marketing campaign. Look, I'm going to go into a Panera this afternoon. We'll see. You know, my guess
Are
is
you going to get a charged lemonade? You may never sleep again.
My guess.
You've had heart problems. Please don't.
I haven't had heart problems, but like
you saw a doctor. To make sure you didn't.
To make sure I didn't have a problem. I got cleared, though. I got cleared.
You're going to have problems.
I had tests to make sure I didn't have heart problems, and we got cleared, thank goodness. Look, this whole thing is very sad, obviously. Somebody lost their life. But from a lawsuit perspective, I'm just curious if the signage in the store, I guess is what I'm saying, does it say charged lemonade, ultimate energy drink? Because if that happens, then I'm sorry.
Well, that was what I was asking. Like, is there a label on there that says like charged lemonade, or is it simply just lemonade and they just went up and said, oh, this is lemonade, and they got it? Because I think that's where the disparity.
Whenever you go in there today, I'm sure that
play.
sign's looking a little different. I'm not sure you're getting the sign from a couple of weeks ago if they're now being
Someone
sued
says,
for it.
Gold, do you visit Chipotle's website? It's not even about that. But all of a sudden, if there was a new drink that they offered and it was called charged, berry passion fruit tea, I would assume there's something in it. I just think you have to be more cognizant if you have a health condition, right?
Yeah.
I gotta be honest.
You have to be responsible for your own health as well. It's not on everybody else to look out for yourself.
Like when it says charged and it says strawberry, lemon, mint, or mango, yuzu, citrus, I would just kind of assume part of the charge thing is something else. I don't know that I would immediately go to caffeine. I don't know that I would just
They
immediately.
do have some interesting drinks.
Someone says they go to
combos.
Panera all the time. It's labeled at the drink dispenser how much caffeine is in the drink.
Okay, well there you go.
Anyway,
But that's the other thing,
very
is like-
sad situation here. But I don't, it's a bad look for. I mean, the fact the lawsuit even exists, right, is going to put Panera in bad light. But I don't really have an issue with them having a drink called this.
The only other random question I had for you is whether or not for my kids' trunk or treat today.
Oh yeah,
So she got trunk or treater school. So like the fall festival, obviously they'll be wearing their costumes. I have a costume for a Halloween party I'm attending on Saturday. Do I need to dress up for the trunk or treat? Or am I cool to just walk around in my regular clothes?
it depends. Are you
Save the
are you
costume.
fun dad or not fun dad?
Wow, that's it. That's what it
think-
comes down to.
are
I'm
you-
either fun dad or not fun dad.
Yeah, like are you?
Do your kids want you to dress up?
They haven't asked.
I think you. It depends. Yeah, really. Just are you trying to be fun dad here, or just like it's all about the kids, which is totally fine.
I'm fine if it's about the kids.
and it should be. So I wouldn't dress up if you're asking me if I was in your shoes. But I don't know what kind of image you're trying to spin off here this
Someone
evening.
sounds like a future Club 610 beverage. I mean, my heart would be beating through my chest.
Well, you don't
based
have a
on the
heart.
amount
You
of
don't have a
caffeine.
heart issue, so it's not gonna potentially be the cause.
No, but I
of
just
a
don't think I
problem.
like the way it made me feel.
I'm not an energy drink guy anyway.
I
you
get
know
jittery
that.
after
I-
like 2 cups of coffee, and I'm drinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't drink
6
much
of 'em?
caffeine anyway. I don't do energy drinks. I don't drink coffee. It's just not my thing.
Caffeine's dangerous, man.
It's not my thing. We all
Do
have.
you drink energy drinks? I've never seen you drink an
I
energy drink.
can't stand energy drinks, but I'll pound a 44-ounce soda, and that's just how it goes. Not an energy
And even
drink
that's
person,
probably
though.
nowhere close to this charged lemonade amount of caffeine.
Yeah.
By the way, an important question that I'm being asked is, does my costume match my children's costume? In which case, obviously, the answer would be yes, you have to dress up with them. The answer is no. Well, she wanted me to, like, her costume's from a
then don't-
movie
then
called The
If
Descendants.
they ask you to dress, if they
They
want
asked me
you
to
to dress up, yes,
I think
do
you
it.
probably
do it. Yes.
But they have said nothing about it.
Well, then
so.
you're good. I don't think you're dressing up tonight. Then congratulations. You can wear normal clothes.
Hooray for me.
You don't have to. You don't have to dress up.
Show up as dad. There you go. You're good to go.
There you go. That's the random question of the day. Coming up next, fantasy football, week number 8. Paul Charchian, GuillotineLeagues.com. He's going to tell us who to start tonight between the Bills and Bucks. And is Odell Beckham Jr. relevant all of a sudden in fantasy football?
Cody and Gold.
The facts on this.
Also time to check in for fantasy football week number 8 already. We got Thursday Night Football, and nobody better to talk about fantasy football with than Paul Charchian of GuillotineLeagues.com. He's presented by Twin Peaks, Eats, Drinks, Scenic Views. Before we get right into fantasy charge, we were joking earlier that I don't have a new conspiracy theory that I saw you on Twitter with or anything this week, but we are curious. Do you believe in any other ones? Like Bigfoot? Where do you stand?
Avril Lavigne is a body double. You know, what else?
Other conspiracy. Well, okay. I am a believer that Area 51 is a real thing.
Okay.
We can't rule out that aliens have been here, and especially now that, you know, the government's basically come out and said, yeah, there's UFOs. You know, there's all these things that we have no idea what they are, and we have no explanation for it. Now, they haven't produced a body yet, but I do think it's weird that you have these presidents who come into office and they're like, hey, I'm going to declassify all of this cool stuff that we've been wondering about for years. And then they don't.
Find out how weird it is.
Yeah. It's, you know, that is pretty weird, isn't it? So, yeah, you know, maybe that's one of them. I don't know.
Is there part of you that wonders if there's some other sport on some other planet and there's some other church that's like an expert and they have gambling and fantasy football and there's some other godfather of fantasy sports?
God, I don't know. What would the fantasy sports in an alien landscape look
just
like?
futuristic.
They could be playing some like low gravity, cool game where the ball goes like, you know, a mile in the air. That'd be awesome.
Do you think they think the robot officials suck too? Do you think that's happening? Yeah,
that's right. That's right. They breed their own refs who are genetically designed from the ground up, and they still suck.
And they speak to each other telepathically. Get the calls wrong. You can't hear them.
That's right. They're all conspiring against your favorite team all the time.
Charge, from a fantasy perspective, there is one that has been super interesting, and I'm thankful that I dodged it, but I don't think other team did. The Minnesota Vikings have 0 rushing touchdowns, which makes me wonder whether or not Alexander Madison's out on his ass pretty soon.
Yeah, that's very fair to wonder. You know, here we're heading into the halfway point of the season, and we're at 0 rushing touchdowns for the Vikings as a team. You know, he's had 13 red zone carries for Alexander Madison, 10 yards, no scores. The last time Alexander Madison had a 20-yard gain of any kind was 720 days ago, and the real tell in Monday night's upset win for the Vikings. Allow me to reemphasize that. Monday night's upset win for my Vikings.
Yeah.
He touched the ball 3 times in the second half. That's it. Akers got all the rest of the touches, and they even brought in Ty Chandler, got some extra touches in there too. So, you know, I think the Vikings, who could be buyers at the deadline, and there's running backs reportedly on the market, there would be an opportunity where they come back and they say, okay, if Madison's not working, let's see what Cam Akers does with a big workload against Green Bay this weekend. And if they both stink, maybe we're looking at Derrick Henry or Ramondre Stevenson as solutions for the Vikings. So I would not be surprised. I would not start Alexander Madison this week. And if you're feeling very bold, and it's all hunch, but based on the usage we saw in the second half, you could start Cam Akers and see if you get lucky.
Let's say, am I screwed in one of my PPR leagues? I do have Alexander Madison kind of as, at times I've used him as a flex. I put him on the trade block. Problem is everybody else is well aware of what's going on too.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. That's not a buy. That is not a buy low kind of situation.
No. Now, what about tight end too across the league? If you don't have a Kelsey or Mark Andrews who's come on strong here, is there anybody else maybe that you could look at with some other injuries?
Yes. So we have 2 emerging opportunities for young first-round tight ends. This is as good as it gets at the hardest position to fill. You've been struggling with like Cole Kmet, right? And he's killing your team. Here's your chance. We got 2 guys. Number 1, in Arizona, Zach Ertz went on IR on Tuesday. So former first-rounder Trey McBride steps in. Now, he had already seen a big uptick in snaps and targets the past few weeks. So Trey McBride was already trending the right way. And now it looks like he's going to get the full workload. And I know what you're thinking. Cardinals tight end. Yuck. Why would I want that? Here's why. Josh Dobbs throwing to his tight ends like crazy. 10 tight end targets per game. 10. We want a part of that. And then in Buffalo, for tonight's game, Dalton Kincaid is taking over with Dawson Knox ruled out with a wrist injury. And up until now, the problem has been Kincaid and Knox are splitting all the catches. So neither one have fantasy relevancy. But if you Frankenstein those guys together into one super hybrid tight end, you've got the 3rd most receptions and the 8th most yards at the position. So you can go ahead. Let's give Dalton Kincaid a start tonight.
I don't hate the idea, Charch. A lot of this is just based on the idea that I guess we thought maybe some of these young tight ends, and it's really just been Sam Laporta, who'd been the fantasy relevant tight end at this point. But just speaking of tonight, are you going to start Baker Mayfield? I'd asked you a couple weeks ago about Sam Howell. We went that route, and then I even got risky and started, I don't know, like maybe you want to start Sam Darnold. What are you going to do if you're in a tight quarterback situation if Baker or Darnold or some of these other guys are available to you?
Yeah, well, let's talk Baker because, at this stage, heading into week 8, I thought, and I think most people thought, Tampa Bay would be like barreling towards the top of the NFL draft. But right now they're at 500. I mean, they're in the thick of a bad NFC conference, right in the playoff hunt. And Baker Mayfield's on pace for career high yards, almost 4,000 yards. He's on pace for 26 touchdowns. I mean, those are pretty solid numbers. He's got the best receivers he's ever had in Godwin and Evans, and he's playing legitimately well. And that Buffalo defense, all beat up with injuries, right? So Matt Milano's out, Daquan Jones is out, Tre'Davious White, their star cornerback, out. Mac Jones just threw for 270 yards and 2 touchdowns on Buffalo.
Yeah.
So, Baker Mayfield, if you're in a pinch, he's my number 18 ranked quarterback this week. He's startable.
Who of these guys out of the mid-tier wide receivers do you like this week or even going forward, Charge? Let's say trade deadline's coming up and you're trying to make a decision. I'm thinking the George Pickens, Drake Londons, those guys that are just stuck in the middle, Charge, where every week you're deciding between 2 or 3 of them to start. Who out of those guys should you target the rest of the way?
Romeo Doubs. This kid's really good. He is the true number 1 on his team. Jordan Love, even as bad as Jordan Love has been, and he probably gets better, right? Romeo Doubs has been really, really good. He's got 4 touchdowns on the season. He's got a couple of just signature games to hang his hat on. Now, I wish he was getting the ball a little bit more, and they're just not throwing as much as I want and not as effectively as I want. But this kid's really good, and I just think unless you think Jordan Love is the disaster he's looked like so far, and it's not going to get any better, that's a guy that I would, that's sort of a mid to second or third tier wide receiver that I'd buy low on just because he's really good, and they need that offense to start going through him because apparently Aaron Jones is going to be hurt for the rest of the year. I don't know.
Paul Charchian of GuillotineLeagues.com. Yeah, frustration for Aaron Jones owners, no doubt. Now, in Kansas City, I think we asked you last week about the wide receiver room, and we were having a discussion this week after Rashee Rice continues to get more snaps. I feel like going into a game, Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice are the only 2 receivers that I feel confident in getting production every single week. How quickly is Rashee Rice rising up your board in the fantasy world?
A lot. I mean, to the point now where I think the presumption is he walks into every game as a starter. And that's saying a lot because we haven't walked. It's probably been 3 since Tyreek Hill left.
Yeah.
It's been hard to go into every week and saying, okay, here's a Chiefs wide receiver that I can safely put in my lineup. But I think we're getting to that point. And it's less, I love the touchdowns. Don't get me wrong. Fantasy football, we're here for touchdowns. But what we really care about even more, it's the routes and the snaps are going way up. And that tells me that he's separating himself from the pack of the rest of the receivers and that Andy Reid is trusting him. He ran a career-high 30 routes last week. Love to see that. And I think, Rashee, this is turning into your last chances to buy quasi-low on Rashee Rice. Because if this thing keeps trending the way it's going, this kid's going to be like a top 20 wide receiver in a month. So buy low while you can. I mean, in your market, it's a little harder to do that because your market's pretty aware of that.
He's been off the board for a couple weeks.
Someone drafted him in the 6th round and just held on to him forever, George.
You know what? It's paid off. That's the one case where being a homer at the wide receiver position in Kansas City has worked out great.
George, this is more of a football question than it is for fantasy, but Christian McCaffrey, right? He's the greatest fantasy player ever to have under any circumstances for a variety of reasons. They're oblique tear and then still giving them literally every single snap in a game in which they lost. I am petrified that if you're holding on to Christian McCaffrey, you're going to be sitting here around week 13 and be like, well, that was a fun while it lasted. I hope I make it to the postseason, or in an important game, you're just not going to have him one of these times.
Yeah, so it's one of 2 things. By the way, I agree with you, and I think you do one of 2 things. You could shop Christian McCaffrey and name your price, right? I mean, you can go back, you can go get an elite level running back and an elite level receiver, or you can go get Travis Kelce and an elite receiver, or whatever you want, right? So you could do that. Or I would the safer, easier thing to do is just go get his backups. Just go get Jordan Mason and go get Elijah Mitchell and just sit on those guys, because to some degree, they're not Christian McCaffrey even close, but they would be productive running backs for you if and when this thing does happen. And you're right, they're playing with fire. I think Kyle Shanahan's just making a mistake. I think
he loves playing him too much. He can't help himself, Charge. It's just too fun.
It is too well, yeah. He's playing fantasy football with Christian McCaffrey's career right now. And I don't understand it. I mean, he should know better. Given all the going, that team has had so many injuries at the running back position, going back to when Raheem Mostert was there, constantly hurt, and Jeff Wilson was there, constantly hurt. And by the way, those guys are now hurt in Miami too. But you'd think he'd know better than to be running Christian McCaffrey into the ground, who lost 2 years off his career due to nagging injuries.
Got me thinking about trading Christian McCaffrey.
Oh man, look what we did to fantasy today.
Oh boy, oh boy.
But name your price though. That's the fun of it, right?
Well, I have deficiencies at 2 other areas, so I could fix that. It'd be a risk, no doubt. I might be kicking myself in a couple months, or I'll be thrilled when he's not available for the fantasy playoffs anyway.
That's exactly right.
All right, Charge. Great insight as always, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
There you go. Paul Charchian of GuillotineLeagues.com. He's presented by Twin Peaks. Eats, drinks, scenic views.
Sorry, I'm not trying to convince you, but I hate his usage. So it makes me crazy.
I have him in 2 leagues. One league, I'm not trading him because I have plenty of running back depth. So even if he got hurt, I still feel good. The other league, I'm a little weaker at some other areas. It would be interesting to see what kind of offers I could get for Christian McCaffrey. It might suck for 2 or 3 weeks when he's still productive, but I might be happy in week 13 when he's not there.
Do you want to give me Devontae Adams and Joe Mixon for Christian McCaffrey in our Guillotine League?
I got to look at my running back situation. I think I'm actually pretty good at running back. Well, we can talk. We can talk some more. We can get a little Guillotine League trade.
Oh, and
live on air.
Are you willing to trade Christian McCaffrey? Do you really want Devontae Adams and Joe Mixon?
Not this week because the Bengals' run defense sucks, but I will wait till next week.
In 1 week, he'll make that trade with you.
It was you last week.
Revisit.
It was you last week. It was Pete this week. Pete outbid me for $6 for Tony Pollard. 261 he bid. I bid 255, and then I overbid on Adam Thielen. Almost $100 over.
Ooh, so wait, you want to wait another week to trade me McCaffrey, and why?
Because the Bengals' run defense is not good. I didn't say they would lose the game.
He wants to start Christian McCaffrey against Cincinnati.
Yes.
And he probably doesn't want to start Joe Mixon against the 49ers. This is a double-edged sword. He's not trying to running matchup. He wants the positive running matchup one time before this.
I want Christian McCaffrey
also,
to
it does
run.
not matter who Christian McCaffrey is going against from a run defense perspective.
I would like Christian McCaffrey to run for 80 yards and 2 touchdowns, and the 49ers to lose to the Bengals 23-14, and then I will trade you Christian McCaffrey.
We'll revisit this on...
As long as I don't get chopped, I guess.
Then I can just bid for him.
That's all right. I had to survive.
All right, we'll figure that out. All right, let's get to the snitch line. We haven't done it in a little while. 913-586-7610.
The number you have reached. You've called the snitch line.
And if I have to tell you again, we're going to take it outside and I'm going to show you what it's like.
913-662-1270.
Leave him alone!
Please leave your message for Thursdays at 1:15 on Cody and Gold.
And if you think I'm kidding, just try me. Try me. So we're good?
All right, it is a snitch line, 913-586-7610. Something that you've been meaning to get off your chest. Around the office, maybe you've witnessed from a coworker, something you've been doing, maybe a family secret. It's all anonymous. We don't share anything that you don't want us to share. If you text it in, that's all we share. We don't give out your name or anything like that. I do want to mention one we got in. This one, I don't think there's anything wrong with this at all. It's pretty simple. Someone says they called in sick last week so they could go to grandparents' day at their grandson's school. Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. In fact,
good to snitch on yourself, but that's fine.
That's fine. Did you not have a vacation day you could just take instead? But either way, it's fine.
Nah, you don't want to burn vacation days for grandparents'
Depends on your
day.
company. Some people have a lot of vacation, like this show, and then some people don't.
Speaking of which, I'll be gone in a couple weeks. I have been asked to speak at Career Day at Desmond's Preschool.
That's terrifying.
That's great.
I'm going to teach them about the life of radio. I'm going to tell them it straight. We're going to give them the straight answer. These 5-year-olds are about to be scared straight into engineering careers. I'm going to steer them straight away from radio moving forward. I did the other day tell my kid. So, my daughter was asking for a cookie. She was like, "Hey, can I?" She had helped me make the cookies. She helped me make cookies and muffins, and she's asked to bake some more. But we made some cookies. We were down to the last one. I ate it after she went to bed. Next morning, next afternoon, she's like, hey, I thought there was a cookie left. You ate that last cookie.
You just lied.
Put it on her.
You made her think that she ate it and she didn't eat it?
I didn't want the heat on that. I didn't say I'd save it for her, but I didn't want the pressure being like, why did you eat the last one? I was like, I'm getting out of this.
Parents lie to kids all the time.
Constantly, dude.
But that one I have an issue with only because you lied, but also you made it seem like she was not right for thinking she ate the cookie.
Well, I didn't want to blame it on her brother.
You made her
my
think
wife
that she
shouldn't
ate
have to
something.
take the heat.
Yeah.
You basically
I'm not
blamed
even
it
sure
on
she
her
fully
without.
believed me.
Someone else says their boss gets all his race car parts sent to their work so that his fiance doesn't know when he buys it. Oh, I'm sure you're not alone on that. Whether it's race car parts or anything, I'm sure there's plenty of people that do the old. I'm sure there's a lot of wives out there also that have their stuff sent so their husband doesn't know. They have it sent to their office.
This is also why I think you should just have combined finances. Fine, no problem. But you should each have your own separate, independent money to do with the activities you want to do. She wants to buy something that she likes that's more expensive than normal. Fine. You want to buy car parts? Fine. From the 913, had a Halloween party yesterday. 2 sandwich limit for lunch. Colleague grabbed 3 and hid it under the chips. That is to be so embarrassed. Also, just grab 2. Just grab 2 sandwiches. So there's enough for everybody. I don't think an office should supply lunch and then just put some sort of weirdo limit on the number. I think we're all just people and we understand there's a limit to how many. There was pizza available downstairs earlier.
Yeah.
Gold, you take a whole box upstairs.
No, I didn't.
I'm saying if you did,
that's
a problem.
No, I didn't.
I don't think you need to put a sign up that says a limit for how many sandwiches. But also, if you're hiding it under your chips, that's kind of bad. That ain't great.
No, it's not.
Did you read the one about the guy stretching at work?
I did not.
Someone says a guy at work farts while stretching with no warning. Just keeps. Have you is this an ongoing
Constantly?
thing? While stretching, I gotta ask, where are you at?
Do you work at?
Where people are just constantly stretching in the office? Is he? And it's also causing the same bodily function.
If you work at a gym and this guy happens to be doing it, yes, it does.
Someone from the 6-2, Cody, you're such a dirtbag. I love it.
Cody out here gaslighting his kids. You monster, someone says.
From the 913, I introduced my girlfriend's 12-year-old kid to coffee.
Oh, no.
Because he was having a hard time staying awake in first hour. Haven't told her yet. Ooh.
Don't be doing
12, dude, that's like a fifth. And a girlfriend's kid's not even your kid.
Yeah, that's messed up. That's a problem for you.
I understand. You saw a problem and you were looking for a solution. Kid can't stay awake in school. How about tons of caffeine at 12? I get it. I understand how you were thinking this is a nail and I'm going to hit it with a hammer. I think you might be taking the wrong approach.
We got this one. This has probably happened to you at times. You go through a fast food window and maybe the price, the total's incorrect. Someone says 913-586-7610. They said they got McDonald's this morning for their kids. Total was $21. Pull around to the window. The gentleman said $3.55. They said they paid knowing that was not their total, but when they got to the other window, their food was correct. That's one of those, I'll be honest. You know what? It's happening so quick. It is what it is.
He said he knew, though, man. He knew $3.55 wasn't right.
Yeah, you should. Well, I would have said it's not. I don't think that's mine because I would have thought I would have got the wrong food. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Normally, they say the wrong total. You're like, that can't be my order.
We figured he could just play it at the window and be like, this is not my order. I had this, and this.
Yeah.
Play it the other way. Look, if you got away with it.
Do I think this guy got $18 off McDonald's? McDonald's will be all right. But yeah,
the price of the extra value meal has gotten very high.
We've talked about this.
It's gotten
Got to
steep.
use the McDonald's app, man. Saves you some money. McDonald's app.
I don't have the app. Should I be?
Yes, you
Saves
should.
you money. Also on Fridays at McDonald's, free Fry Friday.
But you do have to spend $1.
Okay, you buy your drink. You buy your.
I had no idea this was a thing, by the way. From the 816, Target literally has group stretching at the beginning of shifts.
Oh,
worked
really?
a second job there.
Is that a liability thing?
So people who work
Workplace
at Target
injuries?
get together and stretch before work? Should we be doing that? Should we, before the radio show? Should we be stretching as a group?
I understand, if you work at a warehouse, right? You work at any warehouse, Amazon, whatever. They do stretches before their shifts, right? Because they're lifting things and all that. And I'm not saying nobody at Target's lifting boxes or whatever, but that's the price. The cashier at Target is doing team stretching.
Just out here doing a couple of burpees before the show?
Someone else says, we've all eaten at McDonald's, so they already owe us.
I mean, they've got more money for me over the years.
But that's the same logic where people think it's okay just because it's self-checkout that you get to do that. That's not okay. You don't get to just take an item at self-checkout because it's self-checkout.
But if I make an honest mistake at self-checkout, that's your fault. I'm
true,
not trained to be a cashier. If I screw something up, that's on you.
Right. If it's a true mistake, you're not intentionally not scanning something. Yeah, I'm with you. They can't be all that upset if you accidentally don't scan something. But if you're doing it intentionally, that's messed up. The only part that the self-checkout thing we've discussed is Yeah, the whole option where it asks you to tip or whatever. Yeah, no, I'm scanning my own items. I'm not tipping the robot. Thank you very much.
You guys want to stretch?
Is this stretching music?
It's meditation music, you know?
I mean, meditation's good for you.
You ever meditate? I honestly think meditating would probably do some work for both of us. Let's be honest here for just a minute.
I mean,
could probably use some meditation.
Probably should start the you're gonna be 40 soon. We probably should start the everyday morning stretching. I think it's gonna pay off when you're in your 50s and 60s. Kling goes to Stretch Zone. Kling gets stretched out at Stretch Zone. You know.
From the 816, my first job was at KFC. The general manager and a couple employees would give away free chicken. They wouldn't give free chicken. They'd give away chicken, keep the money, and then buy Coke with it. It's like, okay, well, I assume that happens at some establishments.
Yeah.
Dude, wife's coworker started giving her 5-year-old coffee every morning, and now he's 6 and has 2 cups before school. There's no way. This is also saying they're an alcoholic. There's just no way any of that's true. Could you imagine giving a 5-year-old coffee? My 5-year-old is off the walls. If I so much as gave my kids don't even drink soda. Like I can't imagine if I gave them an actual cup of coffee or one of those charged lemonades.
I feel like kids versus for you and I, like it wasn't that uncommon to have like a 12-pack of as a kid in the fridge of Coca-Cola or something, right? But I feel like now more truly now because people have realized the health issues more and more. So I feel like it's pretty rare now that kids are drinking as much. They drink more.
There still are more than you think, man.
Juices and water and stuff more than we did, though, right?
There's still kids who drink. So.
Right, but don't you think it's less now than it was 15 years ago?
I think every kid was drinking it when we
That's
were
what I'm saying. That's what I mean.
Yeah, maybe now it's like 50%. Someone said, call back. Can you go to Stretch Zone for a first date?
That's a weird
Get
first
stretched
date.
out together.
It's a weird first date. I don't think she's agreeing to that for a first date either. Stretch again, getting stretched out's important. I probably should do the stretching every morning, man. You're going to be thankful in 20 years from now.
I've never considered that. I have considered like the cold tub thing. They say that the health benefits from. They've said the health benefits from that every day is like incredible.
I don't think I can do the ice bath.
I've been very tempted by the ice bath situation.
I don't think I can do the ice bath. The cryotherapy stuff or whatever. That's different. I would be interested in that.
Cryotherapy is way more crazy than ice baths to me because they put you in a room for 3 minutes at negative 150 degrees. Like it is as cold as you're ever going to get.
Just
in your
make sure
entire
your feet
life.
are covered and your junk's covered, and you'll be fine.
It does. From somebody who took a lot of ice baths when I was in high school and in middle school, they're amazing.
They say
it sucks for the first 2 minutes.
It helps your like metabolism and everything.
You need to bring a towel. You'll be biting the towel for 2 minutes, but then once you're numb everywhere, it's great.
Imagine
isolate that audio and just use it out of place, and it works. It works really well out of context. I needed everyone to just sit for a half second so that audio could be isolated. I think sometimes I'm the person who says things you shouldn't very times on this show, but I think that on its own is probably
It is going to be worth it. You take an ice bath.
Sorry.
That's how it's going to sound like when I play that clip back later.
That's the snitch line. We haven't had one in a while. Good stuff. 913-586-7610. Up next, we'll get to what's trending and what is really uncalled for in one Missouri town while the Chiefs are playing the Dolphins.
Cody and Gold on 610 Sports Radio, brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. For asphalt, concrete, and parking lot maintenance, Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Trusted in Kansas City since 1994. Online at GANNasphalt.com.
Twin Peaks is the best in the game. Here, you're in the red zone for every college rivalry and divisional matchup all season long. On game day, you never have to decide which teams to watch. Only what combination of bites, burgers, wings, and more to order. Plus, where else are your favorite draft beers always poured at a frozen 29 degrees? Only at Twin Peaks, the #1 sports bar.
Get wings the way you want them. Try Twin Peaks wings, bone and breaded, naked, smoked and grilled, or boneless in your favorite sauce or rub.
Have you ever thought about what it takes to build a park or what it's like to sit on a giant dozer? I have. That's why my parents are taking me to Dozer Days, where kids get to be in the driver's seat and actually drive. Yup, there's even stuff for parents to do, like the diamond dig. I can't wait to explore big rigs and operate on real heavy equipment.
Dozer Day, November 4th and 5th from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Truman Sports Complex. Parents, see kansascity.dozerday.org for more information and purchase your tickets today. Dozer Days, where the kids drive.
When people have a craving to explore new and traditional Asian cuisines, they head to P.F. Chang's, where scratch-made dishes come from the 2,000-year-old tradition of wok cooking. P.F. Chang's wanted to explore new possibilities for their website. They turned to AmericanEagle.com. American TalkingEagle.com re-architected P.F. Chang's website, integrating multiple third-party systems to create a unified digital experience. The results? Improved page speed and performance.
injury update for the Chiefs out of practice today. Nick Bolton, obviously not practicing, had surgery on his wrist. He's going to be out for quite some time. But the two surprises, Harrison Butker dealing with an illness, did not practice.
So
and
I'm okay
Jerick
for now.
McKinnon dealing with a groin injury, did not practice. McKinnon, anytime you have a groin injury this late in the week and cold weather and all that, you wonder about his availability. Just 2 days ago, we did a topic about Harrison Butker's dominance, and I said, you got to be careful when you talk about him because your past history that you have with jinxing him, whether it was the hoodie, whether it was preseason last year, and you said, it's not like he's going to roll an ankle or anything, and Justin Reed's going to have to kick, and that's exactly what happened. And so here we are today. The fact that's an illness and probably just like a stomach bug or something, I think you're okay on the jinx. But if it was like an ankle or groin for him, we'd have some problems, I think, today. Text line was already all over you for it.
I'd be very careful about mentioning one Harrison Butker, apparently, in my life. We'll see what happens this weekend, I guess. I'm off the hook for now, as it's just an illness. But this is a short-lived
as long as it's truly just like the flu or something. It's not something more serious,
Although he probably, the second he heard me say his name on Tuesday, he must have known he was getting ready to catch a bug. Next up on What Trending, Sporting KC advanced in the postseason to take on St. Louis. This Sunday, they did it in PKs after a 0-0 draw through regular time. And, of course, the stoppage time at the end. Mealy was really good once again in the PKs, which is what drove them toward this. They lost the season series to St. Louis, who is the #1 seed. I'll be honest. Beating St. Louis and stuff is fun. And we don't get the opportunity anymore. Like this year, the last couple of years, the Cardinals haven't been nearly what they are. The Royals have obviously struggled a lot. So another chance for a Kansas City-St. Louis rivalry.
Yeah.
Obviously, 2 games will be in St. Louis if they need a third game. First one this Sunday in St. Louis. First game in Kansas City will be November 5th at 4 o'clock. That's, of course, the game that the Chiefs play in London. Or Germany, sorry. So good news for you is that you might be able to catch both.
Yeah, it was a fun game to watch last night. Weather ended up clearing out, and so if you were planning on going out there, the weather ended up not being as much of a factor as everybody had thought. And they lost the season series 2-1. Hopefully it's the reverse of that if needed. Obviously a sweep would be great, but let's see if Sporting KC can't go on a little run in the postseason. Next up on What's Trending, Thursday Night Football this evening, Bills, Bucks in Buffalo. Buffalo Bills are 8.5, 9-point favorites, depending on what book you're looking at. Yeah, kind of like the Bucks a little bit to cover, not to win, but to cover. It seems like it also could be a little bit of a trap spot where you're like, all right, the Bills look like crap. There's no way they can cover. And then remember, the Bills still can also flip the switch.
They covered that number 3 or 4 times this year. And almost every win, they win by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, so when they're winning games, it's usually not by a small margin. But yeah, they're not playing well right now. Looking forward to Thursday Night Football. Man, if the Bills were to lose this one somehow at home to the Bucs, then we got to really start having a real conversation about what Buffalo is. I think they're going to win, but I wouldn't mind the Bucs making an interesting game this evening.
It's good for the Chiefs, obviously, if the Bills lose, so that's what you should be rooting for tonight. Next up on What's Trending, a couple of news notes around the NFL. Adam Schefter saying the Frank Clark deal is official. The Seahawks have also tweeted it out now. Frank Clark with a little graphic. Back home, the whole deal. Obviously didn't work out here in Kansas City. He's there. And also, Tyreek Hill back at practice for the Miami Dolphins. Undisclosed hip injury. Yesterday, they popped up on the report quickly out of nowhere. He missed yesterday's practice, but back out there again for Miami. That would mean more likely he plays this Sunday. And, of course, even less likely that for some reason he would miss that game in Germany. I never thought he'd let himself miss that game. If you remember his time in Kansas City, which I assume most of us do, Tyreek had a lot of little like hip things or back things pop up here or there where he'd miss a practice here or there. He always played. Tyreek was available. That was a big part of his skill set. He was always available.
Next on What's Trending, we suspected this was the case, but Brett McMurphy saying that Jason Bean will start for the Jayhawks against Oklahoma tomorrow. As we know, Jalen Daniels has been dealing with this back injury with very little detail since before the season even started. And if you go back to that Missouri State game, we said, hey, you know what? The concern here is this might be an on and off back injury, and that's unfortunately what it's been with a lot more off than on for Jalen Daniels. Jayhawks 10-point dogs Saturday against Oklahoma.
That's actually a little bit lower than I guess I thought it was going to be.
Sold out. They just announced it's sold out in Lawrence. Big noon kickoff. Obviously, Oklahoma, one of the best teams in the country.
Are you going?
I'm not. I'm
on
the
support
air.
Your squad?
I'm not. I cannot go even if I had tickets or wanted to go.
Could have.
I'm
skipped your show.
No,
support your
I
team.
get paid for that show.
So?
I'm on BetQL and CBS Sports Radio Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 11, talking betting. Thinking of betting. we wrap up what's trending. Tomorrow, hope to see you guys out at Tanner's in Kansas City, Kansas, right there off of 39th and Rainbow, right by KU Med. Visit KCK, putting on a fun sports betting event. As you know, you can bet in KCK, betinkck.com. A lot of you from the Missouri side maybe go right across the state line. So tomorrow from 3 to 6 o'clock out at Tanner's, be giving away some Red Friday betting T-shirts. Also going to be registering you to win some K-State football tickets, which we'll give away tomorrow while we're out there. And you can get those T-shirts. You can see what they look like also on my social media. But you can get the T-shirts either at the Tanner's Bar and Grill there on 39th and Rainbow or out at Hollywood Casino. So looking forward to seeing some of you. Let's get our bets in for the weekend. Now you don't have to drive across on Saturday or Sunday or Saturday. Just come on over on Friday after work, have a couple drinks, play some bets.
I did finally see the MVS total was out.
Okay.
Won some money on it last week. I suggested as the show bet. Might suggest it again this week. I don't know. 16.5. That's the total for MVS. They have put his numbers so low. It's just.
Well, because other than
and
last
I know it's
week,
a trap, man.
man.
You could have lost it a couple weeks ago when it was 22.5 when they were taking on the Jets. He had like one catch for like 5 yards, but
I think he's only hit his total twice.
16.5.
Do it again.
I think he's only done it twice, but it is such a low number, which is why it's very, very tempting. You mentioned the Germany game. That's coming up next Sunday, not this Sunday, next Sunday when they're in Frankfurt. Be that 8:30 kickoff. Daylight savings time ends as well, so you'll fall back a little bit. And a lot of people maybe are thinking about going to some brunch, breakfast, watch some football. A lot of bars in the area are going to open up at 8 a.m., if not earlier, for the 8:30 kickoff. We saw this from Fox 4. This seems like it would never happen if it wasn't a smaller town, and for that reason, this sucks. But we know that normally a football game is going to kick off at noon. And so if this was going to happen before noon, maybe it's not a problem. But the town of Odessa, Missouri, has been notified by the city and Evergy that their area will experience a planned power outage from midnight to noon on November 5th. That happens to be when the Chiefs are playing at 8:30 in the morning. That's the entire Chiefs game. That sucks. Fox 4 reached out to Evergy for this, and they said workers are scheduled to rebuild a transmission line using multiple crews, permits, coordination with the railroad company to get the job done before colder weather. Now, some other businesses in the area said they're gonna have generators. So, like if you own the local bar or grill, they're gonna bring in a generator and smart and hope people come in there. But this sucks, man. This is uncalled for. You got to be better planners.
If you are planning something in the fall, it stands for a wedding too.
Yeah,
you have to plan around the Chiefs' schedule. Choosing, first off, just thinking, hey, we got to do a planned power outage and we got to lose power for 12 hours in a certain area.
Mm-hmm.
Sundays during football season might be one of the worst times you can do it. I get it.
They can't do it on a weekday because people are working. They don't want to, they're like offices and businesses, right? So they're not going to do it on Monday.
Sure.
Can you not do it? They said colder temperatures. I get it. It's going to get cold soon. Can you not do it the next week during the bye week?
Literally during the bye week?
Also, we all understand power outages when they're unplanned just happen. Nobody would fault them if at 9 o'clock in the morning you lost power. That would suck, but it happens. You can't have a planned power outage right in the middle of a football game.
This report says they can't move it, man.
Especially then the 8:30, especially an 8:30 kickoff. And yeah, because of everything they have to coordinate, it sounds like this is happening. So you either got to get out of that town that morning, the night before, or some people are now going to get generators and have a bunch of people together and make it into a fun thing watching the Chiefs. But shout out Odessa, Missouri. That's terrible. Like 45 minutes from us, I think.
We feel bad for you. We feel bad for you, Odessa, to the point that we might try to find a place where you can go watch the game with us. You know?
Yeah, I know.
You want to make the drive in?
Jefferson's. I know Jefferson's going to. Our guys over there going to open up both locations, North KC and Lenexa. They're going to be opened up at 8 a.m. for that game.
Makes sense. Not the normal time you'd be awake, but why not? Or for
opened up
for bar. But you got to watch
here
the game.
8 a.m. on Sunday.
I mean,
let's go.
I don't.
Well, a little mimosa, a little screwdriver. Screwdriver. Anytime touchdown bets and scrrives. Let's go.
Is that what you would go with, a screwdriver?
I would, actually.
Is that your breakfast drink of choice?
Actually, yeah. Very rarely do I. The only time I have an alcoholic beverage at breakfast, quote unquote, or brunch, if I'm in Vegas or on vacation.
Anytime, if I'm in an airport, that is.
Yeah, vacation.
I've already told you, lawless society. It could be 7:15 in the morning at the airport, and I think it's acceptable to have a drink.
Yeah, if
one
you're
of the very few places on the
vacation,
planet.
If you're on vacation, you know what? You're in Vegas or you're by the beach and you happen to get up early enough in the morning, you know what? Nothing wrong with it. Not do it all the time. But for a Chiefs game in Germany, when else does that happen? Might as well.
That's the time. You should drink a Guinness. Drink something like overseas.
Not my
or,
style of beer. You know that. Not
Newcastle.
Not my style of beer.
Drink an English beer,
That's just not my style.
You don't like any kind of dark beer?
Not a big stout. Not a big stout or porter guy.
What are the biggest German beer brands?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Grolsch? Everybody remember those in the green bottle with the white caps?
I mean, obviously, locally, Casey Beer Co. makes a couple German-style lagers or whatever, right? So,
I guess you could just do that. Local. I was just trying to think, like, if you're trying to get the true German, they make German-style beer, so yeah, probably just
that's what you would do. You wouldn't have to get the brand. You just get
Warsteiner, Paulaner. These are all available.
I've heard of Paulaner. I actually have heard of Paulaner.
I've had multiple of those. If you're looking for a non-alcoholic option, Beck's is mentioned.
Well, I've heard of Beck's as well.
So there are some choices. Figure it out one way or the other. We'll find a spot. Sorry, Odessa. We apologize for what is a completely unfair expectation where all of a sudden now you cannot have power in the middle of the Chiefs game. And I don't know how many people just generally own a
generator.
It cannot be that many.
Not that many, no.
I've thought about it. Like, is this
What's
a
the
thing you should just
population of
have if you
Odessa?
own a house and you're worried about what would happen if you didn't have it? But
5,500 people are impacted right there in Odessa.
And all 50, it's close enough to Kansas City. You just know that everybody in that situation is going to watch it. Tonight, I know we'll react probably if they end up losing. If the Bills lose tonight, are we burying them?
No, the same way we talked
burying them?
No, because the same thing we
4-4 with a home loss to the Bucs on Thursday Night Football.
It goes back to the conversation yesterday about the AFC not being as challenging. But no, we won't bury them the same way we said, hey, if Cincinnati keeps winning, at some point you're not burying them unless they continue to stay under 500 or something. But if Buffalo goes to 500, they're not buried as in not making the playoffs. But they can threaten the Chiefs for the AFC crown stuff, that starts to dwindle and go away.
The thing about the Bengals, though, is that Joe was hurt. Josh Allen is completely healthy, and the defense
T.
is...
Higgins, also, if you're just going to have an injury-prone season, that also is what it is. T. Higgins is hurt.
Right. I don't know. I just feel like I know that they've had some woes defensively with guys being out, but still, they've had Josh Allen everybody on offense has been fully ready to go and good, but they've had some issues. Josh Allen turning the ball over and more.
No, and I assume that they're going to be one of the teams, when you see these articles come out over the next few days of what team should be targeting at the trade deadline, the Bills can't be less they can't be less aggressive. They have to be equally as desperate as they have been. They have been playing like a desperate franchise for 2 consecutive years. They've been spending money, making aggressive trades, moving up in the draft. They've been doing everything they need to do for a franchise who has never won a Super Bowl, right? They are desperate and should be desperate. Well, once again, before things really get out of control, because their cap situation is not great next year, you have to take another swing. If there's a team that I think should take a big chance in the trade deadline, it is absolutely Buffalo. Cincinnati, I probably would have included in that conversation, but they might just feel like they're kind of stuck in no man's land where, is it a lost season, or if we just get healthy, will things be okay? I don't really know where to position them. But teams like Miami, teams like Buffalo, teams that put a lot of eggs in this year's basket, there's no reason to back off of that at the trade deadline, is there?
There's some rumblings that the Bengals might look at Hayden Hurst to bring him back. In Carolina, they're obviously struggling now, 0-6. The Bengals don't have any tight end play because Irv Smith Jr. has been a horrible signing.
It's just, and I agree with the texter about that. It's just when the Chiefs have issues, we've discussed them, right? Whether it was a turnover thing or the wide, but they find ways to win still. Yeah. And when these other teams are struggling, they're all floundering, right? That's what's so impressive, I think. But that's not even just a this year thing, guys. That's the last couple of years as well.
Buffalo did absolutely ruin Miami, and they've beaten. They've just over the last 3 weeks, everything's been hard. Everything's been ugly. And that's why they've lost 2 of 3 games, including a divisional one against New England. They beat at least they didn't make it 3 in a row, right? They found some way to scratch out some hideous game against the Giants. I assume they'll find some way to scratch out this game against the Bucs. I do like, again, the Bills to maybe cover, or the Bucs to maybe cover the 9, but
yeah, I'm trying to decide. So Survivor leagues, a lot of people do play in those still, and I've planned all season to save the Chiefs for this week. They're playing the Broncos, as we all know, on Sunday, and it makes sense. The Chiefs would be one of the better picks.
You tempted to swing it to the Bills?
I'm tempted to swing to the Bills because if you look at the schedule the rest of the way, the Chiefs, I got some opportunities in Week 12 against the Raiders, Week 13 against Green Bay, Week 15.
You got to make it a while.
I understand.
15. I don't know if you should be making 15
but Week 15, New England. Buffalo, it's Tampa, then it's Cincy, Denver in Week 10, but I'm probably going to use Dallas against the Giants in Week 10 unless you want to say Buffalo against Denver. Buffalo does have the Jets on the schedule later, but that's a divisional game. I'm trying to talk myself out of it, but right now, Kansas City's the pick against Denver. Part of me is wondering, the way the Chiefs are playing, and And the way now that Green Bay is looking in Las Vegas, like I might want them 12 or 13. Instead, use Buffalo this week. And then since Buffalo's a team you just don't really trust.
You think about calling an audible?
I'm thinking about flipping it, take Buffalo and Survivor tonight, and stick with the Chiefs later on.
The one thing is you don't feel good about picking Buffalo right now, but in a couple of weeks you might. They might be back on track playing good football again, and then you might not care about picking them against the Jets.
But I know the Chiefs are going to be one of the best teams all year now.
Yeah, that's a lock.
Right? I mean, that's a tricky one. Other popular Survivor picks, Buffalo,
It's the same thing
Miami,
as Guillotine League. Sometimes it's like saving
Detroit.
a team only works if you keep surviving.
Yep.
You know,
There's 180 of us left in a $23,000 pool Survivor League.
How many?
23K. There's
How many people are
180 left.
180.
Made it to the top 30 once and got axed. So we're trying to at least get to that spot and then see if we can make something happen.
You blew it. You blew it in that one. You had an opportunity to help yourself out a little bit there, and you. What was the team that cost you?
The Rams a couple years ago.
The Rams against who?
Carolina maybe or something weird a year ago. But yeah, this year, knock on wood, we got a plan put together. We're on track. See what happens. But I'm trying to not, I don't want to overthink it. All week it's been Chiefs, and then here today, as we've talked it out more and I've looked at the Bills schedule, part of me is tempted to switch it to the Bills tonight. They're at home on a short week and save the Chiefs for later.
Baker Mayfield was injured this week, so he might be limited a little bit on the field.
But it's weird. I do agree with you that I think the Bucs might cover.
That's fine. You don't care if they cover.
I
I just don't think the Bucs can. I don't think the Bucs are
winning this game tonight.
No.
So you guys do think it's going to be close, though? It's going to be a good game.
Again, it's so funny. Like
close is relative. They could lose by a
9 points.
touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean,
9 points. 9 points is a lot of room to wiggle there for the Bucs.
And 9 opens up the absolute backdoor cover for you. Like that's going to be part of your playing this bet and betting it, right, Gold? Is that they could be down 14, 15, 16 points at the end and they could still get the backdoor cover for me.
Of course, C-Dot's coming up after us. Text line says, tell C-Dot hook 'em while you're changing places. Ryan Wingo. I already made a comment to Carrington last night. I already made my one jab.
Damn, why?
Last night I was
They
getting ready
got the
for...
best football team right now. I don't know.
I was getting ready for... Well, I was getting ready for... well, yeah, you still can give a hard time for somebody like for something in the future before the betting show. He's like, what's your favorite bet tonight? This was before I was doing my show last night. And I said, oh, actually, my favorite bet, it's 2025 Biletnikoff Award winner, wide receiver for Texas, Ryan Wingo. And he just walked away.
We'll talk more about that tomorrow.
I pay no attention to recruiting.
Neither do I.
Missouri
I hate recruiting.
Missouri fans seem like they were on watch yesterday after Ryan Wingo flipped his commitment. Well, not did he flip his commitment?
He was never committed.
Everyone just kind of thought he was going to Missouri?
Everybody predicted he was going.
Projected to go to Missouri and then flipped last minute.
Yeah, and then his dad still said, well, we got till December 20th or whatever, so you never know.
That's worse.
Yeah, it's recruiting sucks. You know, this is not a KU-MU in general. I hate recruiting. I hate it with KU as well. For
this might be
basketball,
because you had to cover it for a while.
I just don't like it. Yeah, I worked out in Boise, and I was basically forced to be into recruit. I don't like it. It's a bunch of 17-year-old kids making decisions, and then everybody gets all bent out of shape based off of the decisions. NIL stuff
and
now.
And then they yell at 17-year-olds.
3-star, 4-star, 5-star.
I'm all for the NIL, like these kids having the opportunity to make all this money. That's great. I just don't like the tracking. Once they're on campus, I'll get excited. Once they've signed and they're on campus, I'll get excited. Good. That's it. I mean, that's just, in general, I don't care what school it is. I can't stand the process. I know it's the lifeblood of these programs. Nobody's saying it's not needed. I don't like the coverage of recruiting.
Sure.
That's all. We're back at it tomorrow, guys, on a Red Friday. Chiefs, Broncos, Club 610. I believe Sean Barber is going to stop by.
Coming.
He's promised us. We're going to have Old Fashions, I think is the plan.
That's what I was going to do. He likes bourbon, so I was going to do that.
Brandon Stokely, former Broncos and Colts wide receiver, going to join us. We'll get the Denver Broncos perspective on the Chiefs and Broncos. Talk to you guys tomorrow. C-Dot coming up next.